Ew. Aloha. Waiting for. Yep, space is up. Let's go. How's everyone doing on this fine Friday evening? Almost Saturday for me now.
Hello, how's it going?
Yep, pretty good. How about you?
Good, thanks. Are we live on YouTube and everything, or?
Yes, we should be. Someone's saying 1 minute late, unforgivable. So I think yes.
Well, sorry about that, everyone. Sorry about the little mix-up with the start time of the space for those that are jumping on here. Basically, once I set a time for a space, like X gives you the ability, allegedly, to change the time, but it never fucking works. Like literally, the app just crashes if you do it. So I basically just had to type in the comments that it would be half an hour later than what the time that I set. But that's probably the time. This is probably the time I'm going to go with going forward, just because it matches up better with my sleep schedule. I can actually get up and like get myself ready before jumping on. So this is kind of probably what we're going to go for moving forward. But yeah, with all that said, welcome to another episode. Obviously, been a couple of weeks since we've been on here, but lots to talk about. First of all, Zulu, how's it going? How are you tracking?
Oh yeah, pretty good, pretty good. We got plenty of things to talk about today. Over like, I mean, just earlier today, I was trying to, because there was this video released by some, I think his name was like Gingy something. He was like a football content creator, I guess. Um, where he was trying to get somebody kicked out of the stadium for being racist against the Ghana team, and people were from the UK who kept saying like, "Oh my God, this is terrible. Free speech doesn't include racism." And they're saying, "I can't believe that Americans are calling this free speech. That's why the country's so terrible." And like I was just running it over my head earlier, and like asking people, trying to figure out what actually do the normies think that the term free speech literally refers to, if not the freedom to speak. It's quite baffling and very opaque. It seems to me like the basic line that they go down is that, well, they know that racism is bad. They've been told that many times. Okay, that's axiom one. Racism bad. Axiom two, the government is there to stop bad things. So therefore the government's going to stop racism. That's just a direct implication of their axioms there. But they also know that, well, the government also is supposed to be enshrining, that's the right word, enshrining freedom of speech. But don't worry, because they've got a new axiom. They've been told by the news media that free speech doesn't include hate speech. So very simply, the government is able to infringe that speech, but it's not included in hate speech. And it occurs to me that there is no coherent understanding of the term free speech that we can get to here. So it's just it's almost like a God of the gaps thing where we've cut away all these freedoms. And it's like, well, we don't have any positive case for free speech, but it's not these things. That's what we know. It's very sickening.
For sure. Maybe we'll start with the World Cup then, since you've jumped off with that example, and I totally agree with everything you've said so far. I would just say, like, as a general opening, the US hosting the World Cup has just been like an absolutely fantastic opportunity for leftists from other countries to like just cope and seethe nonstop, for a wide range of reasons. Basically, a lot of leftists in other countries, um, a lot of their personality revolves around America bad. Like that is a very, very core tenet of a lot of the ideologies of Europeans and of Australians. If you're like a leftist in Australia, like America bad is very core to your philosophy. So um, having the World Cup be hosted in America, and in Australia's case, having America in our pool in the World Cup has altogether created some fantastic opportunities for people to say some really, 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 really retarded things. Um, Start off with this. So, as I said, obviously the US and Australia played against one another in the World Cup, and in the lead up to that game, there was a fair bit of shit talk from a lot of like this one American pundit in particular. His name's like Mike Grella. He was never really that much of a like great footballer himself. I think he played a bit of championship in the UK, which for those of you who don't know is like the second tier of professional football or soccer in the UK or in England. So he was a moderately good, footballer who was good, well, good enough to play professionally, but like not at the highest level. Um, but yeah, so he was talking a lot of shit about the Australians, said that the US would wipe the floor with them and whatever else. And basically, for a lot of Aussies, it was like the quintessential like arrogant American like stereotype or archetype, and it made them really really upset. And like, there's an element of that that I can understand. Like, I don't mind people, getting into having banter or getting into it about sports. Like that's kind of a big part of sports is the banter and trash talk that goes with it. But um, then the US went out and actually backed up the shit talk that was coming from a lot of their pundits and beat us 2-0, and beat us pretty comfortably as well. Like 2-0 didn't really reflect how much better they were than us on the pitch. But um, it then has led to some incredible, just coping and seething from Australian sports fans, and not even just sports fans, just Australians in general. Because, like I said, these people, like a core part of their philosophy is America bad. So when America beats us at something like football, it's a huge problem, and I've just found it incredibly funny to watch. Um, I think one of my key takeaways is that a lot of Americans actually don't realize how many Aussies hate America. Like for a lot of Americans, Australia is like Crocodile Dundee and Bluey, where we're all very like laid back and chill, and we just kind of like g'day mate. We kind of just go with the flow. Like we're a very laid back kind of country in the minds of Americans, and that is kind of the image that Australians have tried to portray ourselves on the international stage with movies like Crocodile Dundee and other, various, forms of media that have managed to grow outside of like our little bubble down here. Um, but the reality is that realistically couldn't be further from the truth as far as how most Australians actually behave. We would have to be one of the most neurotic, uh, you know, people that I know of culturally. Like people are very, 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 very anti individualism, anti freedom of speech, anti pretty much most of the core tenets of the philosophy that Zulu and I hold. So it's almost a minor miracle that I managed to become an ANCAP, or that any Australian becomes an ANCAP, because I think what it boils down to is that Aussies, um, like Australia, never had that kind of conceived in liberty, to borrow Murray Rothbard's terminology or the title of a Murray Rothbard book, like kind of, I suppose, origin story that America had. Obviously, America was founded during like the American Revolution, or the country, that is the nation, or the state. And so there is at least on some level like an appreciation for the value of individual sovereignty and whatnot, even though it was obviously imperfectly executed when it came to the Constitution, whether it was for slavery or just because of the fact that they justified the existence of a state. But at the very least, there is still that like belief in America somewhere that individualism and individual sovereignty is important. In Australia, we have none of that because Australians never really had to grapple for, the right to individual sovereignty, even in the form of the right to self-govern with a state. Like that just never really happened. It was just like a slow kind of, I suppose, um, distancing from the British Empire, but like never actually overthrowing it, and to the point where like we're still technically subjects of the British Empire. Like we still require royal assent for any law that gets passed. It's obviously very ceremonial at this point. But I just kind of wanted to give people that kind of context for what Australia is actually like, for people who kind of have a very, very loose perception of it, because it's very, very different to what, like I said, what movies and TV and books might portray it as. I don't know if you had any kind of thoughts on that at all, Zulu.
Yeah, no, it's it. I think the Americans, they tend to um it is a virtue of theirs that they're very optimistic as a people. At least for we're stereotyping as well, but for the most part, I think they're a more optimistic sort of people. And you say, like you're saying how it's like they were conceived in liberty. I mean, that's true. Like, for whatever you want to say about the U.S. Constitution, certainly it didn't achieve its plan. Um, and there are definitely bad things about the Constitution, namely that it established a federal government. But it is fundamentally an attempt at a natural law document. They're trying to grasp at the natural law. I don't think they quite succeeded at it, but they were doing about as good as you could expect for that time. You see this explicitly in the Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment says, in effect, this document, we accept natural law. We are enumerating certain rights that the people have, but that doesn't mean that we're disparaging or negating other rights that they already have. So it's saying, no, they already had these rights. We're just trying to write them down somewhere. But it does. They do sometimes, have a more rosy view of just how terrible a lot of these people are, and it's a similar situation in in the various satellite countries of the UK, where in Scotland it's pretty much the ideology of 90% of people that England is bad. That you got to be against England no matter what. It's like, okay, not quite the case. It's a form of envy. It really is.
Yes, and I wanted to touch on something because obviously you brought up the Constitution, and how in America, at least, there's explicit enumeration of certain rights, and as you said, obviously it doesn't claim to be exhaustive of every right, but at the very least there are explicit rights granted by the American Constitution or by the U.S. Constitution. Um, that is not the case in Australia. The Australian Constitution is a long document that barely enumerates any rights whatsoever. A lot of stuff like freedom of speech, um, and freedom of communication, and freedom of religion, and whatever else the case may be, have to kind of be implied by kind of certain clauses where the High Court being our equivalent of the U.S. Supreme Court that kind of rules on the Constitution, um, basically has to imply, oh well, they said this, and we can imply because of that this is true. So to give you like an example, so here is the full exhaustive list of rights that you have as an Australian citizen according to the Constitution. So the first is the right to a trial by jury. So if you're charged with a crime, um, you're guaranteed to have the right to have a jury of your peers decide your fate in a trial if you wish. That is one of your rights. Um, Freedom of interstate trade and commerce, and basically preventing states from restricting trade across borders. Now that has been under attack. Well, it came under attack during COVID, and it was just absolutely hilarious because the High Court did rule that it was justified for the different states in Australia to impose like borders to prevent people from crossing from one state to another to protect people from the coronavirus, which was just incredible because it's literally one of the five rights that we're supposed to have had enumerated, and the High Court approved just flagrant violations of it. So it kind of shows you how much value and stock Australians actually put into the explicit rights that we are supposed to have, as minimal as they are. Um, Freedom of religion. So I'll retract what I said earlier. You do actually have the right to select your religion in Australia. You're not allowed. The federal government can't make laws establishing one or imposing religious observance or prohibiting the free exercise of any religion. Um, Freedom from interstate discrimination. So you can't be discriminated against if you live in Victoria or if you've travelled from Victoria to Queensland. The Queensland government can't discriminate against you in any way. And the last one, this is the funniest one, in my opinion. It enumerates the just terms for acquisition of property. So it basically says that the government must pay fair compensation if it acquires your property. So that is an explicit right in Australia. Not that you have the right to own property, but that you have rights if the government decides to take property from you. Like, so that's like kind of where we're at as a country. It's like the government is explicitly entitled to take your property. The only qualification is that you have the right to seek just compensation or fair compensation. There's a famous movie, or one of the more popular movies in Australia, is called The Castle, and it kind of talks a little bit about this. It's actually one of the only pieces of media from Australia that I can think of that has a relatively libertarian message. Basically, this family, what the government wants to take away their house to build like an expansion to an airport nearby. And they kind of fight against it and take their battle all the way to the High Court, where they eventually win and retain the right to, keep their home. Now, the thing is that a lot of Australians take that as like an anti kind of big corporation message, because it's the government is doing it at the behest of some company, like large, international, airliner. So that's where a lot of Australians will take it. But I think if you actually were to do some proper media literacy, you'd see that it's actually a criticism of the government, and specifically that the violation of that explicit right that's granted in the Constitution. So, anyway, Zuli, did you have any super chats or anything you need to read out, or anything else you wanted to add at all?
Yes, we do. We do have from D Egidius for $5 US. Thank you very much. Who says, as has been said, Americans are benevolently ignorant of Europe. Europeans are malevolently well informed about the US. And this does happen. I mean, it's the price of being the world superpower. You're gonna be the focus of the envy, I suppose.
Yes, and just quickly before we get to Casimir and Sue, guys, I can see your hands. I promise I'll get to you very, very shortly. Just on that, yeah, I think it comes down to, on some level, it is that knowledge gap that you've just kind of referenced, the person in the super chat and you, Zulu. That basically Americans don't give a shit about Australian politics. Okay, I guarantee you, there's the only president that, the only former prime minister, I should say, of Australia that anyone that I could bet that any Americans would be able to name is Harold Holt, because he's the one that died by drowning, and then we named a swimming pool after him. So he's kind of famous for the wrong reasons.
I would think
But
Albo.
oh well, the current one, yeah, of course. I think I'm thinking like obviously
Yeah.
historically, like I can name every US president dating back to 2000, and the years that they were in office for. Guarantee you, there's very, very few Americans, if any, that could do the same for Australia. I would be almost certain that they wouldn't know who, like, John Howard is, for instance, who's probably the most famous and longest serving prime minister of recent times. I wouldn't be able to tell you who that is. I can tell you who fucking FDR is, and Calvin Coolidge. Like, I probably know more US presidents than I know fucking Australian prime ministers, to be quite honest with you. So
Yeah, and
that's
like,
where it's like that. Sorry, go ahead.
and honestly, I think this is it's an implicit recognition of the fact that America truly is the last battleground for capitalism. In this big fight of capitalism versus communism, America is the final battleground, So of course that's where everybody's going to be putting their focus, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to that point, there is this kind of, you do have, if you're an Australian, you do have this time to develop this resentment towards America, because so much of our society, whether it's media, sport, politics, so much of it is influenced by America, that America is going to be on your mind a lot more than vice versa. So that you have this time to build up like feeling towards them, whether it's positive or negative. And obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people choose the negative. And whereas for America, like any other given nation, they're just so low on their list of priorities that you're not going to develop anything beyond kind of polite ambivalence towards other countries, unless you, excuse me, unless you like maybe travel there or something, and then you might, I don't know, kind of like it because you've been there as a tourist, I suppose. But anyway, I do want to get to the hands, so we'll start with Sue, and then we'll go to Casimir. But Sue, good morning. Well, it's good morning for me. How's it going?
Good
What's
evening.
happening? Yeah,
I
good
want to
evening.
go back to the topic of World Cup. So a lot of people here don't know, but US, Australia, Turkey, and Paraguay were in Group D. And I guess congrats for Australia's like destruction against Turkey. And then it was like an insane, like complete destruction. But what surprised me and made me notice, I always thought like, oh, Australians probably like likes the US, right? Like they're similar countries in that sense. It's like both Anglo background, Anglo culture, and they're both, like widespread countries. Like I thought like it would be like they would love Americans. So both America and Australia passed to the 32 round. They both passed the stage. And so yesterday US was playing against Turkey, but it didn't matter in terms of score. It was just a friendly match. It was like useless match. And then Turkey won yesterday's game. And then I saw videos of Australians celebrating in masses, like US has lost against Turkey. And I'm like, this has no impact on Australia whatsoever. This game is like completely irrelevant to Australians. So it's like I would expect them to support US because like they're way more similar than Australia is similar to fucking Turkey. And then like there are like bunch of people celebrating just because America lost against Turkey. I'm like, what the hell? Like these people must have like some serious grudge against the
It's
US team in USA.
It's very funny because obviously for a lot of present day Australians, a lot of the justification for their dislike of America is like, Donald Trump, and, they're a fascist conservative state, or, whatever else. And I just find that funny because, like, you know, Turkey versus America, which country has more, discrimination? I wonder, like, so if that's your justification, then I don't think you should fall on the side of, I don't think you should fall on the side of America, of Turkey in that case.
Turkey's
So,
the bastion of equality and freedom.
yeah,
What are you talking
exactly.
about?
Yeah, they're very, very anti-discrimination over there. So I did find that quite funny. Did you want to add anything else, Sue, at all?
No, that's all. I hope the US wins the World Cup. So it will be a huge fuck you and a middle finger to the rest of the world and cocky Europeans who think they're the best at soccer. So that's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that happens, then they're going to have to change the name of the sport officially to soccer. Like, I
Fuck
think
yes.
that's going to be what has to happen there. Um, but no,
By
thanks
the
for
way,
that, Sue.
is it true that
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Australians call it soccer? Because I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, so we would, well, I mean, our national team is called the Socceroos. So yes, we do. I mean, obviously, because the thing is, little quick Australian culture lesson for you all. There are four different codes of what would fall under the umbrella of football that are played in Australia. So you have, obviously, as we've kind of talked about, soccer or association football, the one where you can't use your hands except if you're the goalkeeper. And then you have Australian rules football. So that's like a unique code to Australia. It's typically played in Victoria, and then a lot of like the western states, like South Australia, like basically the western half of, or the western three quarters of Australia plays Australian rules football. Um, and then you have rugby league. So rugby league is very popular in New South Wales and Queensland, especially Brisbane and Sydney. Or actually, especially outside of the metro areas, it's a hugely popular sport. And then rugby union. So rugby union being the sport that most people would be familiar with if you heard the word rugby. It's like the All Blacks, for instance, like they play rugby union. That is somewhat popular, primarily in like metro areas, like within like private school, like upper class areas in Brisbane and Sydney, and then like a bit of Melbourne down in Victoria. So the thing is that like depending on which part of the country you're in, any one of those four sports could be called football. So in order to like distinguish them, we kind of have to use like different words. Otherwise, if you talk to a different person on any given day, if you say the word, "Did you go to the football on the weekend?" That's going to mean different things to different people. So yeah. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, yes, we do typically call it soccer unless you are from a like directly, immigrant European family, or not even just European, but unless you're like closely associated with immigrants from, soccer playing nations, in which case they'll probably call soccer football to answer your question. So, but yes, officially we would consider it to be soccer. So there you go. Cool. So Casimir, I assume you had your hand up. Did you want to jump in at all?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You guys were so wrong on so many things. And also bread and circuses. Boo. Boo. Sports. Sports ball. Boo. Boo.
He's only going to put a
But
pony on
anyway.
Liverpool.
No, I understand why the ladies like sports balls. I understand. It's better than watching actual fighting where men can get bludgeoned to death. I understand why that happens. But let's go on with the annoying corrections. First of all, I wanted to make a joke that Australia doesn't exist, and we don't really think of you, not in a benevolent or not in any kind of way. But actually, I did remember Australians in one thing. During the lockdowns, in terms of the number of people that did not get jabbed, Australia led the world with, I believe, 15% of the population that didn't get jabbed. And that was the moment where I recognized Australia existing. And I said, we have something to be envious of Australians. Somehow, there were 15% of retards that defended themselves against the oppressive state. I don't know how they did it without guns. Maybe they ran off into the wilderness and, survived on koala blood for a few months.
They hopped away on kangaroos.
It was
Yeah,
they
maybe
did
they
the
were
Ned Kelly
kangaroos.
thing. They made themselves some Ned Kelly-esque body armor and I guess used a repeating rifle.
Yes, or maybe they were kangaroos, or maybe even emus. But yes, there was 15% of them recorded. World record in the US, it was more like 10, or maybe even below 10.
Just for the record, we're still not on good terms with the emus after the whole emu war thing. So,
Yes.
so they wouldn't have been emus, unfortunately.
Listen, I could have lost the birds as well if I was fighting upside down. Anyway, but you said something that really pissed me off as an American. You said that our Constitution, maybe you said like protects or defines rights, and that's that's actually the opposite. The way that even the awful U.S. Constitution is written in a completely different manner. There is the Declaration of Independence that declares natural rights, as in God-given rights. And this is a completely different tradition from rights being given by a document. The document is, in fact, outlining where the government, in order to protect existing rights, can meddle in human affairs. And it lists a bunch of restrictions against government interference. Now, obviously, because of
I think that's what
inherent...
Zulu was saying. I think you might just be misunderstanding. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you may have missed it. I was
Zulu's
going over
point.
like the Ninth Amendment, how it's explicitly saying no, there are already rights existing. We're just trying to write down some of them that we can think of in this document, but we're not disparaging natural rights, other rights held by the people.
No, I know, but I heard what Monhop in fact said, and maybe he misspoke. But even the various amendments, they speak of restrictions on government, on the rights that shall not be infringed, meaning that they exist independent of the government. And so the list, the Constitution is supposed to be about what can be infringed and when. Now, obviously, because of the inherent socialism of voting, all of this has been corrupted over time, and that's why the document sort of is a failure. You start with a sin, and the sin keeps growing larger and larger. But I also want to talk about how none of this actually matters. It doesn't matter what piece of paper you have on the books. The Constitution of Australia doesn't matter. The Constitution of the USSR didn't matter. They had a constitution. It was very liberal. Didn't matter at all. What matters is the armed protests. So normal protests don't matter at all. People could protest for months in Russia, for months in France. The police will throw a few grenades, blow up a few hands. Eventually, people have to go work. They get tired. The tractors retreat back into the fields, and everything collapses. So there's only one country in the world, one federation where armed protests continue, and that's the United States. So if you research, besides events like the Bundy Ranch standoff of 2014, where the feds were basically told, you're going to have to kill a lot of civilians. You're going to have to repeat what happened with other federal standoffs, where people actually ended up losing their jobs because they had to kill civilians, had to, quote unquote. Then the feds decided to back off, and wisely so, because it wasn't worth it. And that's what gun protests do. They tell the government, and the federal government in particular, that the cost is going to be the first fireworks of a civil war. And do you want to play that game? And they often say no. We would rather retreat now and use various laws and lawyers and courts to slowly choke the life out of you. So this is the way the feds work. They isolate people, and then when they're alone in front of a judge, they crush their power to resist. But in the United States, there are mass protest movements, and whenever the socialists try too hard or overstep or do too many things all at once, then they quickly realize where the actual power in the United States lies, which is sheriffs deputize people, and the National Guard does not get involved, and entire state laws about gun confiscation and about COVID lockdowns get thrown into the garbage can, because the Constitution doesn't matter when people stand in front of their homes with guns. And for the next, I would say, maybe there is a window of maybe the next 20 years that will continue to be the case. Because the cost of opposing those people is too expensive. And so what we have, instead of open opposition against such people, is gradual subversion. The world audience is being made to forget the armed protests in the United States. We have regular ones, like in Michigan and other state capitals, where people each year walk out with guns and show them to the government. We had the 2020 armed protest against gun restrictions, which simply nullified federal and local gun laws and said, we're not going to operate. But you won the election. You made the law. We're going to oppose that law in front of the Supreme Court in the next 5 years, but you're not going to enforce that before the Supreme Court decides, because we're just going to show up with guns and you can't do anything about it. And so this showed up and then got ground down into nothingness in the awareness of most Americans and internationally. It got replaced by the incompetent and impotent story of the false flag on January 6th. That is the image of people in the state capitol, unarmed, getting beaten by police. That's the image they want you to see. They don't want you to see people casually strolling with semi-automatic weapons while the politicians are cowering beneath them. Because these images, you can still find them online, but the articles get slowly erased one by one. It's even hard to get the eye to recognize that this was the case. So that's the real power in the United States that gets eroded. And that's why you are right that this is the last battlefield of capitalism, because everywhere else, the people are disarmed. And if you're disarmed, then you're a slave, and all you can do is make funny movies that get banned in Germany. You can't actually do anything about it.
Indeed. Appreciate that, Casimir. I want to go to Thomas, the privatized tank engine. I can't see your hand up at the moment, but I believe you had your hand up
It
before,
looks
so
up
I
on
want to give
my
you the opportunity to
screen.
jump in. Oh, okay. So, Thomas, if you want to jump in at all and go for your life,
Hey, hello
please feel
everyone.
free.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Good evening. So I wanted to ask a question.
Go for it.
Do you think the World Cup ball can fit in Alice Decay Castle?
Brr, brr, patapim.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm not going to answer that question. I think that's my answer. I'm not going to answer that question. But
I need to change
appreciate
my wake-up alarm.
appreciate the contribution. With all that said, let's go to Yermore. Yermore, how's it going, man? You want to jump in at all?
Right. I've not been here the entire time. How long have you been going so far?
Like
36
half an hour
minutes.
at this point. Yeah, 37 minutes to be exact.
Just a half an hour. All right. Have you talked about the Andy Burnham stuff? More specifically, his like tax policy that he's wanting to do.
We have not, but that is on the docket, so feel free to introduce the topic.
Yeah, Andy Burnham he's supposedly trying to come in and remove the what's it called, the stamp tax or something like that. It's about the property, like buying property, and he's trying to remove it and replace it with a flat land tax, which is like just ownership. And he's putting like a 0.5 tax on all like land properties. That's supposed to be happening, supposedly.
And the Georgists will be cheering and cheering and cheering all the while, probably introducing. It's funny, these Georgists. It's always, no, we just want a single tax. Single tax. It's like they can't seem to recognize that that's never going to happen in a billion years. Never going to happen. Because sure, Andy Burnham's going to bring in this land tax, and then probably also bring in a bunch of capital gains tax. Like I think I saw they were going to start taxing ISAs a bunch more, which is like, okay, well then why even bother having an ISA at that point? Like the whole point was for less exposure to taxes. Like it's insane to me. Like this is gonna kill any chance of this country doing anything good ever. Hello, Andy Burnham, for in 3 months' time when you have negative 50 approval points or whatever.
Yeah, it's very despotic. They actually decreased the ISA to the ISA allowance to like 12 grand, and they have the tax up to 22%. So
Oh,
it's pretty
Jesus.
cool.
Like I mean, there was one time when I was like, oh, you know what, I'll open up an ISA because I heard they're supposed to be good. It's like, oh wow, you get like, a savings account where you're less exposed to taxes. That seems good, but I can't even see any argument for having an ISA any longer, or a pension. I don't have a pension. Like it just seems that I have 0% belief that by the time I'm 70 or 80 or like 200, however old you have to be to get that, by the time I'm that age, I have 0% confidence that the system will even be slightly solvent still. I'm not paying into any pensions.
Yeah, and it's Andy Burnham as well. He used to be the Manchester guy, and
Yeah.
he's like this big old timey Labour. He's trying to bring back the old Labour. He's saying we need to restore Labour.
Restore
He's using
Labour.
all these like ironically is using like all the restore language or like this, rhetoric that's described as like
return with a V.
Right. Yeah. It's gonna have like the Celtic cross on the background.
I did see somebody there was like a suggestion that Andy Burnham was like going to move some of Number 10's operations over to Manchester. And there was somebody like really pumped about this and saying, move the entire capital over to Manchester. I was like, what is even like, unless you're like just a Manchester radical or something, you just love Manchester, for whatever reason. I see no, what is the possible argument for that being a good thing? And I've was unable to find any explanation as why it would be good or bad to move the capital to Manchester. Like, what does that actually accomplish? It seems like utterly pointless to me.
You know, I think the smell of all the constant garbage from the strikes and the farmers coming out with all the shite hoses will like push the politicians to do something, you know?
Maybe they'll finally get HS2
Yeah,
done if they move the capital to
oh
Manchester.
my god.
Um,
Maybe.
So obviously we did want to talk a little bit about UK politics of all things. Obviously with Keir Starmer being ousted only a few days ago as UK PM. Look, I got some thoughts about it, but they're pretty broad. So and not like specific to British politics, but I just think that this is kind of like emblematic of some other issues. But Zulu, did you have any kind of thoughts on specifically Keir Starmer? I mean, he wasn't ousted, but like I think he resigned, but you know, in practice, more or less ousted. I think. What do you kind of make of the whole thing?
Yeah, no, I think the Labour Party is taking entirely the wrong message from what they've seen going on. It's not that they just need a more Labour guy. It's that Keir Starmer barely limped in. I say barely limped in, even though they got a bunch of seats. Only because people just hated the Conservatives so goddamn much. They just didn't want any more Conservatives. So the lesson from that isn't people love Labour now. People are in love with Labour. The lesson is, stop trying to, I don't know, impose all this draconian bullshit, and then people might be a little less pissed off. Like, certainly there's a lot of socialism going on in the UK. A lot of people are socialists over here. But still, it's not at the point where we can have Andy Burnham be like Mr. Popular. Like, it seems to me that we're just in an endless loop of a new PM comes in for about like 2 to 24 months and then leaves in disgrace after having made everything worse. And I don't see any way out of that hole without some massive upheavals in the system. And like to explain to the foreigners who are sometimes confused about this system, like, we don't vote for a PM. This is why there was somebody on Discord, I think it was Nilvon, was asking like, okay, well, who's going to be the PM now? Is this going to be like another election or something? No, not quite. It's going to be just another Labour guy. Definitely going to be another Labour guy. Because we don't vote for PM, we vote for our local MPs. And then the MPs decide who's going to be the MP.
By the way, the party selects the Prime Minister once they've won the election. Because in our system, the Prime Minister isn't the head of state. The origin of that role is basically just as like an advisor to the monarch. The monarch is supposed to be the head of state, and this guy's just like the number one minister in effect. So like we don't vote on the minute. Honestly, I think it would be, if Keir Starmer wants to do a single good thing in his life, and spite all these people who backstabbed him, he'll call a snap election and go like, oh, okay, Labour, let's see if people really want more Labour. Let's find out, shall we? Let's see if it was really my moderation that made everything terrible. I think that would be fantastic. And if Keir Starmer's listening to this, call a snap election. Let's see what happens. But of course he won't, because he's a fucking spineless retard. Being a secret Remnant watcher would be an unbelievable plot twist.
Yeah, so I wanted to. So you kind of touched on what I wanted to talk about with this, which was when you kind of spoke about how you're in this vicious cycle, and Australia is in a similar position. It was even worse in Australia at one point where we had felt like a new prime minister every 6 months at one point. It was like Julia Gillard, and then it was Kevin Rudd, and then it was Julia Gillard again, and then it was Malcolm Turnbull, and then it was Scott Morrison. It was just like absolutely wild at one point. Like we were just constantly changing who was in charge as they just backstabbed one another. It's settled down a little bit now with Albo, but it was pretty bad there for at one point. But no, so what I wanted to pick up on was this kind of cycle where everyone gets really really pissed off with the government, and then there's a new election, and then everyone almost immediately after voting for the new guy immediately turns on him or her. In the case of the legendary reign of Liz Truss, who was prime minister for an unbelievable amount of time,
like 2 weeks or something. I think honestly, like there's that common question doctors will ask you, like who is the prime minister, to see if you've lost your brain power or something. In that period, they would have to pick a different question. It's like, fucking, I don't know. It changes by the day.
That was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, the point being that what this shows is that these democracies that we live under are more or less failed states. Like they are pretty much ungovernable at this point. Like people's time preferences have reached the point where basically what they expect is to have a new prime minister come in and solve all their problems that they have with the current government absolutely immediately. And if they don't do that, then they immediately hate them. And you see this with approval ratings. Like Starmer's obviously was hovering high enough when he won the election to win an election, but within days it just immediately tanked off the face of the earth. And obviously the same with Truss, same with a lot of prime ministers, and similar with Australia as well as obviously Australia, because we have states, we also have what's called premiers, which are basically like the prime ministers of the individual states. All their approval ratings, with relatively minor exceptions, tank pretty shortly after elections as well. And it is just fundamentally what Hopper was talking about in Democracy, the God That Failed, how democracy promotes high time preference to where people expect their problems to be solved extremely quickly by whoever is the head of state. And if that doesn't happen, then they are, extremely upset and they want to oust whoever's in charge. And the point being that it's pretty much impossible to actually be forward thinking and make decisions that might hurt in the short run because of take Austrian business cycle theory. Okay, if I was to, it would be political suicide for anyone to try and cut government spending in any meaningful way in Australia or probably the UK, because there'd be a bunch of people that would be hurt by it, and then that would be pretty much game over. Is these people would kick up as fast because they've lost their government benefits for some such reason. And then a lot of other people would get mad that that's happened, despite the fact that they're complaining about their tax rate or, government debt or whatever. They would then go and complain that, spending has been cut in this particular area. And then that would be political suicide for that person. So
well, yeah,
this is genuinely what happens with democracy. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
They want all their shopping in one bag, but they don't want the bag to be heavy. I don't see what you're not understanding here, Monho.
Exactly. We want low taxes, but I also want lots of gibs for myself. That's what we want.
And to be abundantly clear, this is, it might sound to the unacquainted listener that Mon Hop's pining and oh my god, these people are in such a terrible position. This is a position they've put themselves in, the state, namely. This is them reaping what they have sown. They have created this system which necessitates that this sort of thing will happen. They've said, no, the government will come in and solve all your problems. You need more government to come in and solve your problems. And then when the government doesn't do that, of course, the propaganda is always, no, it's just that guy in government. He wasn't able to solve. Nobody's willing to step to the plate and say, hey, this is an inherent part of government. This will always keep happening. We need to get rid of the whole thing. All right, just strip it all down, start from scratch, build up actual capitalist institutions. None of this government bullshit any longer. And then things would be a lot better.
Yeah, and to be clear, as you said, I'm not feeling sorry for any of these heads of state. Nor do I feel sorry for the majority of people in these countries, because the majority of people do not accept even one iota what I'm saying. Okay, they absolutely believe that, oh, if we just vote one more time, then we'll be able to solve our problems. You know, the latest one is Pauline Hanson. So Pauline Hanson leads One Nation, who is kind of like the Australian version of Reform, I guess. You know, they're kind of outsiders. They're considered to be quote unquote far right by people in the mainstream, or by the two dominant parties. But she's not going to solve anything, because again, she will, even if she was to get in power, which is obviously up in the air very much, Pauline Hanson, like, she's got no opportunity to really do anything, because again, if she tries to do anything remotely good, people will just get really, really pissed off. And the one thing that I am, you know, wishing for is, I just wish that we had a system where you could at least have, like, the US president at least gets 4 years to maybe do something, like, has that kind of time horizon at hand, to where they can have some level, even minute level, of like forward thinking and forward planning. And, you know, think about, okay, what's the country going to look like in 4 years, rather than just next week? Whereas literally, if you're the prime minister of one of these countries, you literally are just focused on the here and now. Like, it's a daily wins. It's like winning that 24-hour news cycle is all that matters, because you're like one bad news cycle away from getting dumped by your party. So, like, that's kind of the place that these countries are at, and it is pretty dire for those of us who actually, you know, want to see some kind of improvement, or actually, you know, can recognize the fundamental issue with this kind of state of affairs. Yermore, did you want to jump back in at all?
Yeah, it was just on the Scottish SNP referendum now. They managed to somehow get into government with a minority by teaming up with the Greens, but they're trying to go for another referendum for independence for some reason. And they've managed to convince all the other MPs in the Scottish Parliament to go for it. Now they need the government Parliament help, like in Westminster. What do you think?
Well, I am in favor of secession, of course. But this is, I think, quite clearly a package deal going on. It is not leave the UK and go out on our own. It is join the EU instead of the UK. Like, that is, I think, clearly what's going on here. So, like, I think it's kind of just... I think the entire, like, mythology of the SNP is built around the idea of Scottish independence, which is, it's a very funny sort of nationalism, because they're like a left-wing environmentalist party, and yet their plan for Scottish independence is to become a petro-state, which is very funny to me. But, like, that is like their whole mythology, so there is no reason for the SNP to continue existing if they don't do that. And of course, they failed to do that the first time around, so it's not too much of a surprise that they're just trying to run it back again. It's, you know, if they fail again, then there is no longer any SNP.
Yeah, it's a hilarious coalition, actually. It's the Greens and the SNP. It's it's the people who want to get rid of the oil and the people that want to live off the oil. It's absolutely just ludicrous. I don't know how they even managed to figure that one out.
This does actually, like,
it's like
oh, sorry, you continue. I was going to segue.
it's like a nationalist thing as well. They're trying to build up this thing. What were you saying? Aji against Aji. What were they saying? You're trying to do that, but against like the English. All the English get it separate, but they're not doing anything else like except for that. It's
Yeah,
fucking garbage.
And it's gonna be a really hard wake up call for a lot of Scottish people if we do become independent, and then they can no longer blame all of their problems on England. Though they'll probably just try and run like the leftist line, like, no, we were colonized by England because of, you know, something that happened in like the year 1100 or some bullshit, rather than how we actually became part of the UK.
The Battle of Hastings.
Whereas how we actually became part of the UK is that Scotland tried to do their own colonial empire, and then we went bankrupt because we colonized the wrong parts. So then we joined up with England, formed the UK, in order such that we wouldn't go bankrupt. That was how it actually happened. But I'm sure people will try and run this like, no, these English oppressors, because they saw Braveheart, I guess. It's ludicrous.
Braveheart, well known for being a very accurate historical portrayal of what happened.
Yeah. But I did remember my segue, which is about this heat wave we've got going on, and how like there's a lot of Americans out there like, why don't you just install ACs? You know, yes, that AC would definitely fix the problem. But first of all, we've got a thing called councils, which are the devil incarnate in real life, and that's what a council is. The council comes in and they say,
sorry, just real quick. Councils, because we also have them here. They are a good example of like potentially an argument against localism, because they are absolute tyrannical despots in charge of those things. They are incompetent and they are vile. So it is one argument against localism. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
I think I saw Chronic saying that they remind him of Saddam Hussein, if perhaps less virtuous than Saddam Hussein. Like that's what a council is. And the council will come in and say, no, you need planning permission if you want the AC. You've got to prove that you've tried all these other things, or else we're not going to approve you for air conditioning. So there's that. There's also the fact that electricity in the UK is like probably some of the most expensive in the world. And like there were all these like econ bros in my replies who were saying like, no, you're completely wrong about this. My explanation for this was that electricity in the UK is centrally planned such that you are only allowed to sell electricity at the highest possible price that is being produced at that time. You're not allowed to sell for anything less than that. My explanation for this was that they wanted to keep oil and gas workers in their jobs, despite oil and gas being very expensive, because we aren't exploiting our own oil and gas. So we're importing it from everywhere. Which there were all these econ bros going like, no, that's just the natural way that it happens when you've got a market where people can't compete. It's like, okay, well then, why can't they compete? What is the explanation behind that? Could it possibly be that it is the government is the sole buyer and seller of all electricity, and I can't, because even if I'm next to a plant that produces electricity way cheaper, I'm in fact not able to get cheaper electricity from them because I can't directly buy from them. Could that perhaps have anything to do with it? I think it's pretty clear that it does have something to do, at least something to do with it.
Can I come in now?
Yeah, of course. Jump back in.
I saw a BBC article. It was from the 31st of August last year, and it was going on about how AC is actually bad for the environment. You can't cool your house because it's really bad for the environment, supposedly. And it's like this constant environmentalist talking point. There was also, I think, the Lotus Eaters covered a video about this, like mad crazy Greens lady in England, going on about how it makes the temperature outside hotter and the temperature inside colder. Like that's the point. That's actually fucking insane, man.
Yeah, like that's that. It's like insane to me. Like, yeah, it's a heat pump. It moves heat from inside our houses where we don't want it to outside the house where it can just fuck off into the sky. I don't really see the problem with that. I don't see why they're, upset about that. But, of course, environmentalists, they're going to be upset with any sort of improvement in human welfare because they hate humans.
It's like the protesters in America protesting, seething about algae because of like a data center getting built. Fucking madness.
The whole data center thing is insane to me. It's like, no, it uses up like I have never found out what they think happens to the water after it's used to cool the GPUs, I guess, in the data center. Like, it doesn't just get teleported out into space. It flows back through the system and presumably gets dumped out in some river somewhere. Like, what do they think happens to that water? It's just used to cool these, like, heat sinks. I don't understand what the concern is.
I actually got corrected on that. Apparently, most of it does evaporate when they use their current configuration. So the most commonly used configuration of heat sinks right now are evaporation based. So it becomes local clouds, and then it flies off to probably Republican states to irrigate the land.
Yeah, like that. But that's the thing is, like, when water evaporates, it doesn't disappear. A is A. The water is still there. It's just turned into a different form, and then it'll rain. So, like, it still is going back into the water cycle.
Of mass doesn't apply to data centers, Zulu.
So true.
See, but it's gonna rain elsewhere, and it needs to rain in my backyard.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about local councils as well, because as Zulu pointed out, they are literally the worst inventions in the history of humanity. I had one recently where I was living in a share house with this was a few years ago, but 3 other people. Yeah, partner and 2 other people, and we obviously 4 people. A lot of waste being produced in terms of like rubbish and whatnot, and we weren't we only had one recycling bin and 1 rubbish bin, and we're like, this is not enough for 4 like fully grown adults to like live with. Like, we were having to use the neighbors' bins and whatnot. Like, it was just no good. So we asked the council if we could have 2 extra fucking bins, like 1 extra rubbish bin and 1 extra recycling bin. And they were like, actually, you need a permit for that one. So you need a permit to be able to put your rubbish in the bin in certain councils in Australia. Like, that's where we're at with this whole thing. Like, it's an absolute fucking travesty. And they charge us money as well. And it's like, we already pay council rates, like rates being, just taxes, just with a different word attached to them, but they're, fundamentally the same thing. And it's like, you already charge us so much fucking money just to live here. Like, let's just, can we have another bin, please, to be able to put our rubbish in so we're not like drowning in it? That's just what these places are all about. And I'll say, like, more broadly as well, how often the criticism of like the Libertarian Party, for instance, or like minor parties in politics is that basically what they are is people who aren't very impressive, but who want, power and authority. That's what they go into, like, minor party politics, because they feel like they can have some level of, influence and authority. Well, that's local councils, but turned up to like another degree. These people are just people who are so unimpressive in their, personal lives and in their professional lives that they'll never gain any kind of influence or authority in a, say a business where they actually have to make money and be profitable. So they go into local politics and, no one gives a shit about it. So they can get into power relatively easily. And that's how they, get their feeling of authority over people by being local councilmen. So that's kind of my rant about local councils. I don't know if you wanted to come back on that at all, Zulu, or...
Yeah, no, it's I just don't know, like, without government, who wouldn't pick up your rubbish. It's quite the conundrum. But I did get a request to read super chats, and I do have a few piling up. Yeah, let's get through these, boys. We've got Diego Amateur for 2,500 CLP. Thank you very much. Saw someone trying to claim right-wing subverters as merely uninformed rather than malicious. He then schizoed about Jews importing migrants. Yeah, it's there is certainly a lot of in the same way that we've been discussing envy from these satellite nations to the dominant nation. I think there's a lot of Jew hatred is due to envy, because a lot of Jews have been highly successful, evidently so. If you really want to be properly racist, you should be a philo-Semite and say, well, they're clearly the Ubermensch. If they're so successful, they control everything, and that's what my philosophy is based on, then yeah, they're clearly better. But that, of course, they don't go down that route. And then we got a Griff One Nun for $20 US. Thank you very much. Glad to see a new episode. Bundy is very based. Anyway, I don't have anything of substance to add. I just wanted to say I love you guys, Zulu, Monhop, Casimir, and the rest of the community. You're all wonderful. Please keep it up. Well, thank you very much. And then we got another from Griff One Nun for $2 US. Thank you very much. Armed protests are very based. Love them. Presumably in reference to Casimir. Then we got another from Diego Amateur for another 2,500 CLP. Thank you very much. And he says, what are the chances that instead of Andy, it's a Corbynite or a Marxist? I don't know. I don't really keep up with Labour Party politics. As far as the media, of course, they would never like me. The media seem to be painting him as like the next obvious choice. I don't know. I don't really keep up. It's possible it could be someone else, I guess. Then we've got Thomas.
The lamestream media.
The lamestream media. They don't want to know. They don't want you to know that it's actually going to be me, Liquid Zulu, who's going to be the next PM. I've been secretly building up my support. I've been wearing an Andy Burnham mask, going to all these rallies, and then I'm going to peel the mask off, and it'll be me. Trust in the plan. Then we got Thomas the privatized train for 1,000 ARS. Well, thank you very much. I'm assuming that's a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money. I'm not sure what ARS is, but thank you regardless. Donating in my Chud Third World Fiat money to get the feet pics. And they attach some smileys. Well, thank you very much for the money. And then Sue Liberty, who is, of course, in the space, was not able to speak there. It seems like that might have been resolved now. For $5 US. Thank you very much. Why did Scotland not vote for independence during the referendum anyways? I was young at the time, so I'm not entirely sure I know all of the angles. But there was concern over, perhaps being poorer if we left the Union. A lot of people didn't think that Brexit was ever going to happen, and then that's why opinion of Scottish independence went way up after Brexit did happen, because a lot of Scottish people want to be part of the EU. But yeah, I'm not sure everything that plays into it. Then we've got Eli YJ4PT. This is the last one for $2 US. Thank you very much. Citizen Vigilante X. Did you see it? I did not. I can't imagine it's a very good movie. But maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, thank you for all the super chats. I mean, not that the money's going to me, but it's always good to see people supporting the platform that obviously Zulu helps me to have on this show. So if we're all done talking about local councils and Keir Starmer, I want to talk about Grand Theft Auto 6 for a bit. So we got the Remnant talking about GTA 6 before GTA 6. But yeah, so obviously, for those of you who are living under a rock, pre-orders for Grand Theft Auto 6 came out a couple days ago. So obviously, one of the most hyped and kind of popular, I suppose, pieces of media that will likely come out for a very, very long time, if ever. It's a huge, huge game and going to be. and I wanted to kind of talk about what's kind of going on with it a little bit. So, did you have any kind of thoughts on it, Zulu, or I can kind of take it away? But I was kind of curious to get your take, first and foremost.
Yeah, I did see some people were getting annoyed that it's going to be like $100 for the whatever Glup Shito edition, whatever they call it, and then $80 for the regular edition, which is like, I mean, you don't buy it then, you know. It doesn't really seem like that big of a deal when people are like spending that much on games which have had a lot less work put into them. Maybe it'll be a shit game, but who knows? We'll see. One angle on this is that people in the UK get constantly shafted on game prices because no company, it seems, actually bothers to do the proper conversion between pounds and dollars. So we end up paying like 20% more than anybody else. But if you got a VPN, you can buy in any currency you want. So there's a tip for you guys.
Yeah, so look, my take was similar. Like, look, if $100 or $80 or whatever the price of the game is too expensive, then like you said, don't buy it. I did notice that a lot of people were kind of the main crux of it seemed to be that they were upset that the game is $10 more expensive than the standard recommended retail price for most AAA video games these days. And I mean, first of all, it is worth bearing in mind that Grand Theft Auto 6 is not like a typical like yearly Call of Duty release, okay? This is the first new Grand Theft Auto game we've gotten in 13 years. There's a lot more work and development that's gone into creating this game than what you'll get out of a typical release of NBA 2K or FIFA. So I think that's all worth bearing in mind. I think they've earned, in a sense, like a higher retail price given how much money has been spent on developing this game and how many
Like
hours
$2 billion or some shit.
Yeah, like it's a huge amount of money for one standalone game, and like worth bearing in mind as well that um, I suppose I'm sounding like a bit of a Rockstar fanboy at the moment, and I want to be very, very clear. Like, there's a lot of problems with Rockstar and with the gaming industry more broadly, specifically intellectual property. So, the only reason why they're able to charge so much money for a video game, or as much as they do, is because of intellectual monopolies, right? Like, you're not allowed to reproduce this game for cheaper. You can't even really do like modifications to it or anything for cheap and sell them for cheap. That's all against the law. So that's why they are able to charge what they charge for these video games. And obviously, that's not just GTA. That's like any video game, realistically, that's been produced by a large developer ever, pretty much. But if you're the thing that I would say is if you're not someone who wants to abolish or roll back intellectual property rights in any meaningful way, then I don't really care for your criticisms because you're not willing to actually take the solution that would actually, solve the problem that you claim to care about so much. You're just interested in like seething about the price of a video game being too high, and not actually thinking of, okay, well, what is the solution to this problem? Like, what steps could we take to minimize this cost? And so to that end, like I just don't really have time for that sort of person. If you're not someone that's pushing for intellectual property to be abolished, then you get what's coming to you in this realm. I think like that this is the natural consequence of having intellectual property rights is stuff is overpriced relative to what it would be under a free market. So beyond that, like look, the other criticism I noticed was that so there's a weird one. So obviously you've got the ultimate edition, which is $100 or whatever that it works out to in your currency. And then you got the standard edition, which is $80 or whatever works out to in your currency. And people are complaining because they feel like, content's been locked behind the premium edition. You can't get the full experience if you don't pay for the premium edition. And my response to that is like, well, yeah, that's why there's a premium edition. Like if if all the content was available in the free edition, then no one would pay for it, and there'd be no reason to have it exist. And take the reductio of this is like, what if you were to create a rule that they were banned from producing premium editions of games? Like, everything that was available had to be available in the base model of the game. Well, all that would happen is you wouldn't get the content that is available in the premium edition. It just wouldn't be produced because it wouldn't be worth it for the company. The only reason the company produced this stuff is because they could sell it for additional money. And so if that was not available, then it never would have been produced in the first place. So those are a couple of the threads I wanted to pull on. There's more to it, but I feel like I'm ranting at the moment. So let me go to Sue. I see she's got her hand up. Sue, what's going on? I cannot hear her. Can anyone else not hear her?
I cannot hear her also.
Sue, your mic's broken. You're having some technical difficulties there. She's dropped down. Cool. Zulu, did you have any like super chats you need to read out or anything, or?
No, I do not. See here. We had something else.
Oh, there was another topic we wanted to hit on, but yeah, we can jump to that if you'd like to.
No, I think it was the heat wave thing. I think we already
Oh
covered
yeah,
that. We I don't think on the Remnant have we talked about the rape gang inquiry report yet. Unless I
No,
suppose
we haven't.
Casimir's got his hand up, so we could go to that first.
Yeah, we'll go to Casimir and then you can touch on that for a bit if you like. Casimir, please go ahead.
Yeah, so about GTA, I think it's quite funny. I remember the first few games I purchased for $50 around 2010, 2012 maybe, were adjusted for inflation, were about $80 right now. So the price of games has been actually going down for a while because of inflation and the salary adjustments that occurred as well. I think that it's sort of quite amusing that people get so upset about this and not about the other much larger theft that occurs with their money. And it's $10 is right in front of them, but hundreds, thousands of dollars stolen from them are somehow invisible. I think it's bread and circuses. And I also want to comment on the game itself. I think that GTA is one of the more sort of degenerate gaming titles. So it makes you play various unsavory villains. Maybe redeeming quality is supplying restricted substances to voluntary buyers. But even then, that's a degenerate occupation in present day with all the hard drug substitution that occurs. So I don't think that the game really has any redeeming qualities as a work of art. And
well, I think that's the mistake.
I find the whole thing really, really funny.
I think that's the mistake. I don't think games are art. At least they don't have to be. You could make perhaps an interactive art piece, but to whatever degree it's interactive, it's no longer art. Art has to have its own thing that it's saying. It has to be concretizing something very particular. I don't think games are art. I think that's a leftist talking point. I think you need to check that premise.
And so there are aspects of it that perhaps are not the interactivity, but everything else. I mean, there is plenty of things that you can call art, and specifically promoting certain ideas over others. So if you were very effectively curtailed by private security forces in a realistic fashion, that would be showing you one value. And if you can just kill people left and right and go unpunished, then it's showing you a different value.
What's the question? What's fun
really
though?
Matter.
Question: what's fun? Like that's the thing. Is the standard in gaming is it fun? It's not. What does this concretize? What metaphysics does this concretize? It wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
If the game was just, I mean, there are games which are like basically like real life simulators, but that's not what GTA is supposed to be. GTA is supposed to be, driving around cool cars and shooting people. It's fun to like hold a gun and shoot. Like that's a fun thing.
Yeah, it's also fun to eat a bunch of cake. It's also fun to, for certain people, it's fun to engage in real, actual street violence and bullying. It's certainly fun. I mean, it's a power trip. Why not, right? Uh, for us, as long as you're targeting communists, but in Minecraft. But I'm not judging the game based on that. I mean, and in terms of fun, I think I would sort of agree, but uh, the setting and what it tries to sort of aggrandize and empower is very, very degenerate. And there are games with very similar types of fun, that with very similar types of themes that feature actual villains as enemies. So I don't think that tracks. Although I understand, like, people have guilty pleasures, you can have that. So the other thing that I think that's another layer, if we can discuss the art separately, another layer of clear degeneracy in this whole medium is the idea that you're paying a corporation to play on their servers a game that you cannot modify. That makes your PC into a console, and console owners are slaves. So I will never own a console. I think that's a degenerate concept, maybe from my childhood. Never again. And gaming as a service are suspect. You should be able to modify games. That creates a decentralized market that allows people of competence to rise to the top in the current market. So anything that's not moddable is basically more or less junk.
Well, you should of course know. Any time you provide software and it runs on a client, you can mod that software. People have been modding GTA 5 for ever since it's been on PC, really. Even before then, in fact, you can mod it even on a console.
Yeah, you just need to jailbreak your console.
Yeah.
It's doable.
I'm sure that somebody might jailbreak GTA 6, but at the same time, I think there's a clear push to make an MMO like server dependent game out of it, to make sure that nobody messes with their stupid IP based economic model.
Oh, I totally agree with that. My only point would be to back up your point, but to kind of also make mine and Zulu's point. Like, they're not releasing the in Grand Theft Auto 6 case, they're not releasing the disc version of the game for quite a while. It looks like until after the game's officially out, specifically because they don't want people to jailbreak their like with jailbroken PlayStations or whatever, to be able to play the game early, for instance, or meddle with it. But again, like, that makes the point that you can purchase the game on pretty much any platform you want, and as long as you have the sufficient technological knowledge, you can 100% modify it if you would like to. Although that you know, and the chances of them coming after you for that, I would suspect, for modifying the game privately on your own device is relatively low, I would have thought. But
And just to shit on the game a little bit more, there's also the question of writers. So I understand if this was a Japanese game and they had a chance to grab the few story writers from Japan that are actually right wing and realistic, and they write realistic characters, then it might have had a chance to be an interesting game, which is what happens these days with Japanese studios. But with American studios, you know who's writing the stories. These are people who have no connection to reality whatsoever, and they're right crude, just childish characters that are boring. And this is what I expect of the game. I expect another massive wave of stupid disappointment videos that I will be sick of watching, because there's nothing to be disappointed about. You should not look at AAA studios for anything useful. Like, if it's not indie, it's pretty much a failure. And if you look at what games are incredibly successful these days, these are breakout successes. You pointed a breakout success. that is unabashedly like amazing, with decent writing and with some breakaway feature that makes it not unlike anything else. And you're pointing at an indie studio, whether it's I mean, I'm not going to even name the games, but but the pattern is this: an indie studio releases a game, the same GamerGate crap journos claim that it's bad, and then the public reviews come out and it's great, and then it just blows all the sales statistics, and then the studios later on try to emulate it and fail, and people keep pouring money into them for some reason. But yet, the main money is being made by indie games and indie developers or Japanese developers that are not part of the DAI structure. So I think other types of AAA games are basically a disaster.
Yeah, so I don't think that you're going to get the disappointment videos. I think that Rockstar has a pretty good track record of at least appealing to their fan base. The one caveat being that they did get some disappointing, or like there was some disappointment around the remasters that they put out of a couple of GTA games recently, like San Andreas and I think maybe Vice City. I can't remember. I think they put out.
They turned
remasters
the
of those
nut into a circle, I believe. I saw that one.
But like GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption 1, Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 4, the original San Andreas, Vice City, GTA 3, all overwhelmingly considered to be great games, at least amongst their fan base. So I don't know. I just think I don't think that trend is going to be broken by this game. Now there are, as I said,
I do want to.
there's some different people involved in the game these days, but I don't know. I think they have such a strong track record that I'll believe it when I see it, as far as them producing a disappointing video game.
Yeah, GTA games, Rockstar games in general, they're sort of like what Avatar movies are to VFX, where when a new Avatar movie comes out and is made, it like pushes the state of VFX forward a generation. Like they're doing new techniques because they have these crazy budgets, because James Cameron's an insane person who he'll just throw billions at VFX budgets. So they like develop entirely new software because of Avatar movies. And I think it's the same thing with Rockstar games, is they push the technology that one step further. Now, can they keep doing this? Will they do that with GTA 6? I mean, they've put a lot of investment into it, so they certainly think so. And I've got some of the stock, so if it succeeds, then I'll get GTA 6 for free, in effect. Because the stock price will go fucking way up, so I'll just be able to sell that and then be able to buy the game. Which, by the way, you can still do that. Just Take-Two. There you go. Buy Take-Two stock now, perhaps a little bit earlier than now. And if it works out, then great, you make some money, and you can get it for free.
You've missed the boat on the initial pre-order flurry, so that is the one downside. But I'm sure when the game officially comes out, there'll be another boost.
Though I did see some. Yes, we can.
Yo, one more last. I swear, the last downer about this game. I don't think that there's anything more to develop. GTA 5 graphics with mods, they max out the sort of resolution and graphical fidelity that you care about in an action game, unless you're looking for like a visual thrill. You're not looking for the gameplay itself. I don't think there is any further room to develop. Most of the
maybe not visually, but there's other elements.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like it's very much like everything that has been invented has already been invented. It's like no, because it's as Monhop says, it's not just increasing the visual fidelity. Because yeah, we're pretty much getting to photoreal at this point. I don't think increasing the visual fidelity is going to necessarily improve the experience. But there are
especially not on console.
Like let's say here's an idea for a game that I had. If anybody's seen the show Westworld, It's a show where there's this theme park people can go to, where there's all these like robot characters you can interact with in any way you want, and they have their own stories and they naturally interact with you as if they were real people. And of course, people just, it's like a degeneracy thing. People go there to like fuck them or kill them, but there are like more family friendly parts. But I was thinking, like, imagine if you could turn that into an actual game where you had like this sandboxed environment where every character is like an actual like full deep person who has their own full story, and we're getting closer and closer to that with each new thing. We're not quite there. We're not quite at Westworld levels yet, but we're starting to get there to where, 20 years down the line, you could potentially have a game where every NPC is like an LLM agent that has its own script, its own story that it's trying to do, and that would be complete ultimate replayability if you were able to pull that off. So there is definitely still innovation in terms of gameplay that can be done, and I don't think you can pull that off with current hardware. I don't think you could have the Westworld experience with current hardware unless it's like 5 different characters you can interact with, something ridiculously small, which isn't really what I'm going for, but that there is innovations you can make in the technology apart from just making it more pixels and more beautifuler, because I think there is diminishing returns there.
Absolutely. I guess that wraps it up for GTA chat. Was there another topic that you said you wanted to hit on before Casimir jumped in on that?
Can I say something real quick on GTA?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, Elon Musk is a completely new quality control team. Twitter space sucks. Second of all, yeah, this is Sue. I just had to go my alt for everyone else. Third of all, in terms of GTA, what I want to say is
No, we thought it was the other. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
other weird accent female in a
the
Victorian
other Turkish
community.
woman that often comes onto our spaces. We were definitely confused.
Yes, what I want to say is that there's essentially nothing wrong with like consumers, right? Finding a product or service too expensive and then complaining and bitching about it and even boycotting it until the company realizes that's not like the market price they should be setting it. This is actually useful for companies because it shows them that they got a wrong signal of the market if people boycott and don't purchase and bitch about it. But the problem is what I noticed, people are not bitching about like GTA's price because like it is like not generally too expensive for the market. It seems to be a reasonable price based on how much video games cost. But it's because they think Rockstar Games is evil as a corporation and it's evil for them to profit and make money. So it's like that's the part where it bothers me. They're like constantly complaining about the price of the game. Where it's like, no, it's not genuinely because you find it too expensive to consumer, because you genuinely think it's evil for all that company and all those employees in that company making money and profit, which really shows like essentially like deeper problem in society. People think they're like entitled to a freaking video game. They think it's their right to have that video game for a cheaper price. That's all I wanted to say to that.
And like the thing is, if Rockstar gave into the leftist demands and paid each of their employees $1 gazillion each and gave them like 1 gazillion hours of paid time off and all this stuff, whatever it is they want, the game would come out a decade later and would cost 5 times to 10 times more. Like, so it's, it's,
Yep.
if you're complaining about the price, then you in fact want them to work their employees even harder for less money. Which, yeah, I want every product to be as cheap as possible. I want those employees to work as hard as possible, as good as possible, for as little money as possible. That's what I want as a consumer. As an employee, you, of course, want pretty much the opposite. You want to be getting the most money for the least work. This is why we have markets in the first place, is to balance all of this out.
Yeah, and final point on that as well. What Sue picked up on, the other aspect to that is the fact that
there's a lot of people complaining about the price who will then not boycott the game and that will pay that price. And like, if that's you, then I'm not saying anyone specifically in this space. I'm just saying like generally general you, like I just don't want to hear it. It's the similar thing to like if someone goes to a restaurant and is like, oh, you know, the price of the burger at this restaurant was just so ridiculous. Like I can't believe anyone is charging that price anymore, or charging that price these days for this product. And my answer is, well, did you pay it? And they'll say yeah. And I was like, well, then I'm sorry, but you sent the only signal that matters to the producers, which is that you paid for it. It doesn't. They're not paid in. They're not. Their salaries and expenses aren't paid for in the fewest number of complaints made about their prices. They're paid in money. And when you gave them money in exchange for that service, you gave them the only signal that matters to them. And it's the same with another classic example is like DoorDash and other various like food delivery apps, which are, in my opinion, ridiculously overpriced. And it's the fact that they're ridiculously overpriced, in my view, that means that I don't use them because of the fact that they're overpriced. Like I'd rather either cook for myself or, if I'm going to get takeaway, I'll just go and pick it up myself. Like I won't get it delivered to my house because I think that those services are overpriced and so I don't use them. So people who complain and are like, oh, it's so ridiculous how much Uber Eats costs these days as I order my 4th Uber Eats of the week. It's like, well, you're part of the problem, man. Like the price, it's not going to go down in price as long as you keep paying for it at that price. So, yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that as well. Zulu, was there anything else we wanted to pick up on? Any other topics to touch on? Zulu?
Zulu, wake up.
Zulu, this is awkward.
Zulu became solid. It could be.
Like, is it solid Zulu?
It's solid Zulu now.
I actually genuinely want to. Is anyone
Solid
watching
color.
on YouTube who can tell me like what's going on right now?
I'm checking his YouTube channel. He's like he stopped sharing his himself on the stream. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he stopped like a while ago. Stopped sharing. Like he was active, but he stopped sharing. And like we cannot see what's going on because he's not sharing his face, like his room.
Okay. Well, in that case, I guess we might as well. Oh, Zulu. Hello. What happened? Did you go? Oh.
Oh, so I forgot to rename on my mic.
All good. That's fine. That's funny. I just had the space open, so I didn't even check my DMs, and I don't get notifications for them. So, anyway, Zulu, was there something else you wanted to touch on at all?
I do have
Like
some
another topic at all?
super chats which touch on this topic, which I could go over. Let me just
Yeah, for sure.
there we go. Switch back to that scene. So Diego Amateur for another 2,500 CLP. Thank you very much. They don't focus on state theft. The people complaining about GTA, they don't focus on state theft because these people are looters, and they focus on game devs because they are the producers. Which, yeah, it's Ayn Rand's villains are almost too realistic. They're so realistic. It's insane. And then we got another one from Griff1 Nunn for $10 US. Thank you very much. There's an upcoming GTA 5 mod that is very close to what Zulu said about NPC interactivity. You can talk to them with a mic, and it's very dynamic. It's very impressive for mod. I saw something like that for Skyrim, I believe, where like they've got like an LLM that could like respond to different characters. So it's like, hey, Mr. Chicken, what's up? And the chicken will respond to you, and you can talk and stuff to it, which is pretty cool. But not quite what I'm getting at, because there's no like internal consistency. It's not been like crafted for each individual person, We got a Dennycat 98.95 for $5 Thank you very much. I was pretty shocked as an Australian to learn last year that Europe heavily restricts AC. Only time in my life I felt proud to be Australian. So what do you think of that, Mono? I suppose it's a much hotter country, so they can't really get away with it.
Yeah, well, I have 4 air conditioners in my house that I live in at the moment. I typically don't run them all at the same time, but yes, I do have multiple. Yeah, it is a weird one. As you said, I think probably because we're a hotter country and people just like, if there's government overreach that people wouldn't accept, it's the government telling them that they couldn't, cool their home in 35-degree weather. So no, that is one where we are a little bit more based than the Europeans in that you can kind of just, if you've got the money for it, you can install as many fucking air cons as you want and run them as much as you want. It's just going to probably cost you a fair bit in electricity bills, but yeah, you can do that.
Every room in my house except the bathroom has a window AC, and they're always, as much as I can, blasted to 60 degrees. I don't know what's that in Celsius, and I will not stop blasting it because this is America, baby. I will enjoy my cool ass home.
That is 15 Celsius, which is a very good which is a very good temperature. I agree.
The best thing I heard all year with the World Cup, going back to the World Cup, was that the stadium in Texas has huge fuck off ACs that they blow like non-stop to cool, like, because obviously Texas is pretty hot, and so they managed to cool an entire stadium from like the outside temperature of like whatever it would be, like, I don't know, 35 maybe 40 degrees Celsius, I'm not sure, down to like 20. So similar to what Sue was talking about with like her intern. Like, I think that's that's awesome. Like this huge fuck off ACs that cool down an entire stadium of people to watch a football game. I think that's incredible.
It's like when I was in Florida for YALCON that one time, where I was in this building. It's called like the Gaylord Palms Resort. It's like a Disney resort thing, I think. Where they got this huge atrium which has a glass roof. So they basically got a greenhouse in Florida in the summer. It's nice and chilly inside, nice and cool inside. If I were to step out for like 5 seconds, I would be like, oh, I need to get inside now. This is too hot for me. I'm not built like this. It is simply too much. Please, I feel like I'm going to die out here. And so I would just quickly run between these different areas of AC as fast as possible, so that I wouldn't be in these hot temperatures. Because of course it was a fucking like business casual event, so I had to be in like fucking blazer and everything. So I had layers on, and I was like, my God, how do people survive like this? It's insane to me.
Electricity is not even like. It's essential. Electricity is one of the cleanest energies out there. Like, there's literally not much consequences for humanity to use as much as electricity as we can. It is pretty easy to produce electricity without like destroying our environment, like without destroying the cities that we live in. It's really not that hard. So I don't understand why people are trying to think we are wasting electricity.
And it's in fact the best way you can measure a civilization's level of development is called the Kardashev scale, which is entirely dependent on how much energy they utilize. Like, how much energy you're utilizing, that is the level of development you're at, it makes entire sense. Because if you're utilizing very, very little energy, maybe you're only like burning wood for fires and stuff. Maybe you start burning more fires because you want to do like blacksmithing. That's not very developed. You can't have a high developed low energy society. It simply does not exist. There's no such thing as that. There couldn't be such a thing as that. I want to push us up the Kardashev scale. That's what I want. If we became Kardashev 1, everybody's lives would be immeasurably, they'd all be wealthier than Elon Musk. If we were a Kardashev civilization, Kardashev 1 civilization, every single person would be wealthier than Elon Musk currently is.
Right, that's why I actually wanted to ask you a question, because I think a lot of people misunderstand you, and maybe a lot of people do need to hear this. Zulu, do you want the space that people live, to be filled with trash and destroyed and be toxic like some Indian slum? Is that what you mean? I know the answer. I'm just asking so others can hear. Is that what you mean when you say fuck the environment?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, definitely, yes, definitely, no.
You want to literally live in an Indian slum filled with plastic trash.
To be real,
Absolutely.
I do not want that. And I think the way you don't have that is it requires exploiting the environment. When I'm saying I want people to exploit the environment, I mean I want them to homestead. Now, if you wanted to homestead a glacier to use to throw your trash on, more power to you. I don't think that's a very productive use of it. Because in the market, we know this from economics. Every exploited means will tend towards its most value productive arrangement. So, what that means is you're not going to have trash on the streets, because streets aren't in fact very productive if there's trash all over them. So, whoever's allowing that on the street, they could make a lot more money if they didn't allow that, or if they sold it to somebody who wouldn't allow it. That's what happens naturally. And yeah, you won't have as many natural places, but guess what? Nobody wants the natural places anyway, unless you're like an explorer or something. You're not going into nature. Nobody goes into nature. People think they go into nature. They don't go into nature. Like if you go on a hike up a mountain, you're not going into nature. That's not nature. It would be nature if you went on a hike through the Darien Gap and got torn to shreds by like panthers and shit. That'd be nature. And to be clear, I don't hate the people who go into nature. I think that's great. I love, Shackleton, who went on that Antarctic expedition. Like, that is nature, Antarctica. What is more nature than that? Like, that is powerful to me. That is such a powerful image to me. Somebody going out into the frontiers, pushing humanity forward. The astronauts, they are going out into nature. And you know how much they need to prepare for that? It is so difficult for them to go out into that piece of nature up in the space. And guess what? That is pushing humanity forward ever more. If you like space stations, then you hate nature. Nature says no space stations for you humans. But we say fuck you, nature. That's what we say.
Based as fuck. Any other topics you want to hit on? Any super chats or anything, or are we good to kind of wrap things up here? Do you reckon?
Well, I suppose do you want to talk about Zoran Mamdani's rent freeze that he just announced earlier, I believe?
Oh yes. I mean, not much more to say about that off the top of my head, other than that it's obviously completely retarded. The only consequence of this will be that you don't get new houses developed, and the houses that are currently already built will not be improved because there's no way to profit from it. So yeah, another socialist win, I suppose, in their book. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
It is about as bad of a housing policy as you can get. Like I said this about the UK's energy policy. It's about the worst energy policy you could possibly design. Rent freezes are about the worst housing policy you could possibly design, because there's a reason why it costs that much. Like you can't just decide, no, you're no longer allowed to charge more. Guess what? They're going to do everything in their power to not improve that. And I saw somebody like, well, it's actually against the law for them to not improve it and keep conditions manageable. It's like, yeah, that's great. So you're just going to enslave all these people. Guess who's never building in New York ever again? All those guys. Like it is so high time preference, they cannot project out into the future the fact that a rent freeze kills New York City forever. That is killing New York City. I think I saw Nye, who's a listener here. I think I saw him saying that their view of civilization is as like an open air museum, where the job of you is just as a custodian. You've just got to preserve it in its current state. No development, no further development, and that is suicidal. It truly is. We die as a species the second we no longer have Magellan going out and trying to circumnavigate the globe. The second we no longer have Neil Armstrong setting foot on the moon. We die as a civilization.
I have one thing to say about that. I do think some reason why a good reason why people don't want recent development in historical areas is that recent developments are like very ugly because there's not really an aesthetic standard of our time now. Whereas then, like, especially historical developments, especially in the West, well, to be fair, there are East and West too, they had an aesthetic standard. Now, you can argue like it was Christian or whatever, but they did have an objective aesthetic standard. And those buildings like look nice as fuck. They're so beautiful. So it's like I get this urge, like I gotta protect this because like the new building they're gonna put like this ugly ass Bordeaux concrete building that's gonna seek my soul. So yeah, I want to keep the prettier one, like objectively prettier one. And yeah, it is like some sort of like trying to protect like a museum, but isn't it like kind of like justifiable considering like the new thing is like ugly?
Well, so in that sense, but I think the new things are ugly because of the same philosophy which leads people to not build. If we had a philosophy in place which made people want to build, want to push out, want to push those frontiers back, then you wouldn't have ugly buildings. You know, this is the whole plot of the Fountainhead, is that the type of architecture you receive, well, that's based on the philosophy of the architects and what architects people are willing to pay to do that job. So it's just another reflection of this rot in philosophy that has taken over society. So if you had the correct philosophy in place, then people would want to build, people would be YIMBYs, and also they would be building beautiful structures. Structures fit to purpose, structures based on objective standards and the materials of the day, not just like a Keating where you're just building 12 Parthenons on top of each other, and that's your skyscraper. It wouldn't be like that.
I agree with that, but like would you agree that like in the current circumstance, because like most architects are building ugly ass buildings, it makes sense why people don't want to like replace like beautiful existing buildings with like ugly ass brutalist buildings that they're building like in the current standard?
I understand why they don't want that, but I think they're overselling the importance of the look, because fundamentally we just need to build. Just build, 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 build. Some ugly buildings will get built, certainly. But we'll all be so fucking rich that it won't matter to us as much. It's like, hey, that one's ugly, let's tear it down and build something better in its place. You know, let's just fucking push forward and build. That's the most important part. Less important, but still very important, is that we're building good things, beautiful things. And the market can sort that out.
Cool. Well, if that's everything, I suppose we may.
But wait,
But wait, there's more.
So this week, a certain film got released, and then it got banned in Germany. And I have to say, I watched that film. It has a little bit too much psycho behavior in it for me. However, there are key moments in that film which will be cut up for the most brilliant memes that you have ever seen on this platform. And for that, we owe a debt to Uwe Boll, the greatest filmmaker ever, obviously. And also Elon Musk, hearing about the film getting banned and not seeing any daylight in certain places, put up the entire thing on X as a video post. Based.
I suppose that unless Monhop wants to shut it down, that does perhaps segue us into the Rape Gang Inquiry Report, because it's my understanding that the film is kind of related to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we can keep going. Like, I'm happy to keep rolling. I'm just, yeah, that's completely fine. I'll just.
But wait, Zulu, didn't you hear? It's not 250,000. It's only 249.9. You see here on my spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a mistake for people to be quibbling over the numbers. When
it's
we are
like communism, it's like it doesn't really matter at whether it's 5 million or 3 million or whatever that died in it. Like, once you're quibbling over how many millions, it's kind of immaterial at this point. Like,
and it's like we already know that they've been covering this up for decades now. They've been covering this up for decades. So of course, and also rape is already not super heavily reported. So all of that compounding, it's not an insane estimate, right? It's not insane, and there's a very clear political motive behind the people quibbling about the numbers. They have their own political motivations to try and, for whatever reasons they've got, keep enshrining rape culture. That's what it is. It's a feminist term, this time correctly applied. This is a culture of rape. The Prophet Muhammad was a rapist. He was a pedophile rapist. He raped children. So it is not enormously surprising that from this prophet, who they think is the holy prophet, you get a culture who thinks it is acceptable to do that sort of thing. I don't think that is particularly surprising. And we know all this. So quibbling over, like, oh, I don't like this piece of data. Like, the way they're doing it, I think, is the real problem. If they were just trying to, like, in the background, smooth out various points, maybe that could be fine. But it's very clearly they're just trying to discredit this report by any means necessary. Like that lady who was, like, laughing. I'm trying not to laugh. It's so hilarious that it seems mean. Very clearly, she was just pissed off that she got snubbed by the people writing the report, and she was pissed off about that, and that's why she was trying to counter signal it. Like, you can see the motivations of the counter signalers if you look carefully enough. It's out there.
The strange part about the counter signalers is also that's not the only data you have. All you have to do is look around. Now, if you look in the past, you have an excuse. There is no data tracking. There are no cameras. Nobody's recording themselves doing anything. And so you can spread the myth that when a bunch of medieval people with even pre-medieval psychology conquered an area, then there was peaceful coexistence. And all the women continued to walk around unmolested. But now we have all of those videos. We have Gorish. We have various live leak like websites where you can find everything that happens around the Middle East because the bastards that are doing that are showing themselves doing it. And we have the numbers. We have the Yazidi tribe. We have the Assyrians. We have all the massacres of the past 100 and 30 years that are very well documented. The massacres of the past 30 years that are very well documented. And here's the story. There is a war zone whenever they catch a Christian, they do this. Whenever they catch somebody with a slightly different denomination from them, they do this. They film themselves do this. And then when you take them and you move them to a Western country, suddenly they're all angels. And they'd never do this. They would never do it per capita. And then you look at a country like Denmark, for example. A country like Denmark, it started tracking the origin of various perpetrators, unlike other countries in Northern Europe. And what did they find out? What's the number one place? Oh, it's Ethiopia. What's the second place? Oh, it's Somalia. The third place, it's this Arab nation. Fourth place, Morocco, Syria. These are people that perform 20, 30, 40 times the amount of crime as a local resident. And a local resident that's actually like somebody who is perpetually impoverished degenerate. So they are comparing them to the trash in their society, and they're orders of magnitude more dangerous as people to societies that were never anything but benevolent to them. Never anything but benevolent. You can claim, British Empire, blah, 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 did awful things, supposedly. Although we can contest that. The Danes didn't do that to them, at least not in the past 50 years. And then they go to completely peaceful countries and do the same thing. The pattern is there. So then we expect, it's not, the numbers aren't right. What a joke. What a joke. And then you ask them to condemn this, and they don't condemn it. They're brazen about not condemning these actions. And you know what? Speaking of numbers, I'm a very lazy person, but I believe that I would go absolutely nuts if I heard that in New York City somebody made a kebab out of a girl. Okay? I would be protesting and demanding the examination, the DNA swabs of every similar place. Okay? That's one of those is enough, I think, to go ballistic.
I suppose. Did you want to jump in, Zulu?
You know, it's like this is the truth of the matter. Is we've known about this. People in certain circles have known about this for quite some time, and we've known for a while that the government has been actively covering it up because they want more voters. So, like, there is a significant contingent of the population here who simply do not share our values. Not such values that, you eat quality streets at Christmas, but such values that you don't rape children. They don't share that value. And you just simply cannot have a coherent society when you don't, at the very least, acknowledge that fact. Like, it's not even allowed to be acknowledged. Like, I'm having to put all sorts of disclaimers in my video summary I'm making, so I don't get arrested and put in jail for simply pointing at what is happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who were talking about the problems of multiculturalism spent too much time focusing on, relatively, in the grand scheme of things, insignificant things like we don't want to have to say happy holidays. We should be able to say Merry Christmas or whatever, and we don't really want to be able to have to care that it offends people, and that's just that's the wrong thing to focus on. That's kind of my take on it, is that far too much time spent on the wrong aspects of the problems of this philosophy, this multiculturalist belief system, and not enough spent on the stuff that actually matters. That's kind of what I wanted to add to that.
Can I talk?
No, you're not allowed to. Only joking. Of course you can.
Bruh. Anyways, yeah, I want to add to Casimir. So, just 3-minute trance for me, please. I don't think Americans are aware. Americans don't know much about Muslims and Islam. First of all, there are not that many unless you're in Texas or something. And second of all, Muslims in the US are relatively human. They're not complete savages because they mind their own business and just work. No, this is not a claim based on race. It's a claim literally based on the philosophy someone chooses. Okay, they're relatively normal people. They mind their business. They work and they make pretty good money. They don't really commit crimes. They're decent in the US. However, there's a very selective group. The Muslims who manage to come to the US are a very selective group. So Americans don't really know much about Islam and the Muslims because of that. So in Islam, which people don't know much, Islam is not like Christianity, where it's people come up with this gazillion interpretations, and then the New Testament is heavily symbolic, and then Jesus is oh yeah, I love everyone unconditionally, blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm gonna pray you and you're gonna heal. Islam is literally half of it is the Old Testament, and that other half is a literal constitution and the story of Muhammad's day-to-day Arabic fucking pre-medieval age morals and norms. And it is pretty savage. But however, Islam is written very non-symbolically. It is a constitution. It says X happens, then you do Y. Yeah, Y happens, then do Z. So, and Islam, which is literally how they built this whole religion, it specifically says the people that actually made Islam a systematic religion, hadiths are an Islamic law. So according to Quran and hadiths, if someone is something new, modern contemporary Muslim that is 21st century Muslim makes the arguments like, oh, we shouldn't give a shit about hadiths anymore, they have to be the ones like providing the argument why we shouldn't. Because this is against like everything like Islam was built upon, and every single like Muslim society on earth, including like I guess most Sunnis. I don't know about Shias. In Islam, it is very clear, right? Jihad is the end goal. When I said Turkey is like a secular country, they don't give a shit much about Islam. But even when I entered to some like religion classes, like the thing they taught is like the end goal is world domination. Like that is the end goal of Islam, and that is in a very secular country. It is very clearly written that your main aim in life should be jihad as a Muslim. So what does jihad mean, right? It is world domination, but at first it is at first with words. Like you try to convince people through argumentation and debate and tolerance and love. But what if it doesn't work, right? What if it doesn't work? What does Islam say us? It says if people don't listen to our words, that's when you have to get into battle. This is literally written in hadiths. This is implied in Quran. And another second source we have of Islam is literally Muhammad's life. It's called Sunnah, and it is accepted as a legal source. But Muhammad couldn't convince people by sword. What he did, as most people will know, he was literally a warlord. This guy was literally someone who commanded armies, invaded cities. I don't know, provoked or unprovoked, both. And he himself said and practiced, if you take over a city, you're allowed to kill the men, and you're allowed to enslave women and children as sex slaves. Like little sex slaves. He's the one that like made it legal and encouraged people to own sex slaves. He's the one that literally said, word by word, that the woman, as long as they have a period, they should be considered as an adult. Women can get periods as young as an 8-year-old. He married a 9-year-old. Now, some people say it was like, oh, if you interpret it, they actually consummated at 13. Okay, buddy, it doesn't really make it any better. Like, you're acting like 13 is like a fucking grown-ass adult. And that's like a new interpretation, too. Like, why did like Muslims and all Islamic resources did not interpret it for like 1,000 years that they consummated us at 13, but suddenly in like fucking 1900s, this new interpretation came out. It's sus. But it is historically wrong because we have too many evidences of her like being a little kid. And this is the religion itself. Islam, it's hard to modernize Islam because of how clear and how obvious it is. Like you cannot really have this secular, it's so hard with Muslims because it's out there. They can just read it, right? I will say like, obviously not every Muslim is like a savage person. There are a lot of westernized Muslims out there that live based on Western values. Unfortunately, these people are not the ones in Europe. The ones in Europe are like little savages for God knows whatever reason. But most Muslims have access to Quran, and a good amount of them do read it. They do read Hadith. It is publicly available in every. This is not like Catholicism. Quran is available in every language. It is open, and it does tell people to read itself. It's not. It doesn't have a church structure like Christians do. So it is only naturally normal that if you're a Muslim, if you're a believer of it, that you think it's okay to rape children. This is a logical conclusion. ISIS is being logically consistent. They're doing jihad. They're killing people. Kufar. They're taking down Kufar. They're taking down Sikhs. ISIS are literally consistent with whatever they believe. And it is true, for some reason, I still haven't understood why, it is true that these people are being fueled in a lot of European countries, like the whole right-wing argument true. And it's like insane because when I say like I lived in Germany for a year, and when I talk shit about Islam, I would like get literally like destroyed and ostracized because it was like unacceptable to say anything mean about Islam. But Islam is not a race, it's a religion. People choose to be a part of it. Like you're not discriminating based on one's like unchosen capacity. They're choosing this, but we're not even allowed to like, you can't say shit about Christianity or even Judaism, but you can't say any shit about Islam. It's like this untouchable religion. I also want to say that Europe actually has this, which I don't know why, maybe our European fellows can enlighten us, has a policy. If you're actually a westernized individual from like Middle East or North Africa, they don't really give you a visa. But if you're literally like a savage who wants to like, who's okay with raping children and you want to come as a refugee, they actually allow you in. But if you're someone who's like minding your own business and you want to come as a tourist for like 5 to 6 days, they immediately reject you. This is a known policy of Europe. So I had never been able to understand why they have it. It's like a common thing. But yeah, I think for Americans, this is not a big issue, but I think it's important for Europeans to read Islam and Islamic history and understand what these people are defending and what their philosophy is. Yeah, thank you for listening to my rant.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, this is a term that I hate when the neoprags use it, but it is a form of anarcho-tyranny, right? It is, if you're the worst dregs of the society, then come in bulk. We will fund you to come. We will give you infinity dollars, or infinity pounds in this case, to come over. We'll put you up in nice hotels. We'll make sure you're nice and comfortable whilst you're raping our children. And it is purely driven by this leftist cult, which hates the West, so they want to destroy it. And if they bring in enough of these Muslim refugees, quote-unquote refugees, then they're able to get a larger and larger voter base, right? So then they can hopefully win more elections. It is unbelievably short-sighted. And of course, the Muslims in the UK are saying exactly their plan. They're saying it openly. They're saying, no, we're going to take over. And, come on, brothers, we got to vote for this party. And then when we take over, then they don't get a say anymore. They're openly stating their plan. And people aren't paying attention to it, because it's illegal to pay attention to it. And this whole thing about like jihad with the different sects of Islam. There's this meme out there where it is a radical Muslim saying, believe in Islam or I'll kill you. And then it's a moderate Muslim who's saying, believe in Islam or he'll kill you. They are all perpetuating this exact same thing. And we cannot allow it. We simply cannot allow it anymore. These people, they should not be imported in the billions to come here. We don't actually need to import infinity immigrants from the worst societies on Earth. You want to know why those societies are so bad? It's because of the people who make them up, right? We need a brain drain system where we pick off the very best of the world to come here. That would be the ideal immigration system, is the brain drain system. And guess what? That's the exact system you get under capitalism, is the very best come over and operate in their most productive capacities, not this inverted brain drain, where if you're a terrible, terrible person, then you come over as a refugee, and then you get infinity gibs. That is the worst possible immigration system you can imagine. And for the neoprags out there, the solution isn't closed borders. The solution isn't the state owns everything, because guess what? If the state owns everything in the UK, then we're getting truly infinity Muslims, because Labour is in charge. The solution is capitalism, and then only the best of the best can afford to come over. And it's self-selecting in that way. That is the solution here.
There is a second part of that solution. I agree, by the way, with everything you said. I think there is another part which is maybe more into innovative theory. Maybe there's contested theory, you can call it. But if somebody is coming from a place where 99.9% of people don't support anything resembling the NAP, don't support even the precursors to the NAP, live a life of promoting and acting out aggression, and then somebody emerges from that area by moving towards you, by trying to settle closer to you, while keeping the same ideology that they had, I believe that is an act of aggression already. And they have the burden of proof to say, oh no, I'm not like one of them. I renounce that. I'm actually an ANCAP. And if they say that, maybe you have to evaluate them as an individual. But the initial evaluation is not that. There is a communication in where you're coming from and who you are and which beliefs you publicly declare.
It's sort of like if I went to Japan dressed as a Yakuza member, and I was like, and I wasn't disabusing people of the notion that I'm a member of the Yakuza. It's like, you look like a criminal. Like there's that engagement bait tweet that I quote tweeted a couple of days ago, I think it was, where it was a bunch of bikers in a movie theater, and they would mean it was like a social experiment or some shit. Like, don't prejudge people. And they were all dressed up like a fucking badass biker gang, and they were mean mugging everyone who came in. It's like, no, you're already threatening them with violence by doing that.
Yeah. We know what a tear tattoo means. We know what it means.
I actually I completely agree with both Casimir and Zulu. I think the reason why all these people are going to the West is not even like because of the opportunities of the West or anything, let alone like ideological alignment. So I have a time to interact with like a lot of like savage Muslims and third worlders in Berlin, and I realized what I absorbed. I'm not saying like this is like 100% what it is, but it's just what I absorbed. They have a hatred and resentment towards Europeans because they have this inferiority complex because they're so bitter because their ancestors that got raped by Europeans or something. And they're feeling that resentment, and they know their countries are still inferior compared to the West, right? Like if you're from fucking Afghanistan, that's obviously like a way more inferior, like shithole, the worst country in the world or something compared to fucking Germany. And they feel that, and they have this inferiority, and they feel like they have to constantly, first of all, validate themselves as equals, but they're doing this in a way where they're being incredibly aggressive towards what they feel inferior against. And second of all, they feel like they're owed that money and resources.
Wait,
Yes,
Sue, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. What actually happened is they have been on a winning streak since the 6th century. They have destroyed the Eastern Christian civilization. They have conquered the entire Middle East, North Africa. They have conquered Turkey, conquered Constantinople, went deep into Europe. Right? And then and the Turkish Empire, like the latest empire that they had was the Turkish Empire, was gigantic and ultra rich for quite a long time, dominated Europe, basically picked the European country to attack that month, and everybody was shaking in their boots. And then World War I happened, and it all collapsed. Collapsed because it was an empire inherently socialistic. The economy didn't work for centuries, and so it ended up being a paper tiger. And now they have an inferiority complex, which is based on if you watch Turkish TV, what they glorify, what TV shows they produce. You can take a look, and it's all glorification of the imperial past, of dominating everybody else. And this creates a cognitive dissonance with the present experience, which is more recent experience, which is the last sliver historically, the last 100 years out of over a millennia of them dominating. The last 100 years is them losing, and that causes a massive amount of butthurt, exactly as you said, but not because they think that they're inferior. It's because they think they're superior and somebody's cheating them.
So I think I agree with you, but at the same time, let me explain. You're equating like an Arab, an Afghan, and a Turk, which is complete. Turks never got colonized, and please don't guys don't think about Turkish nationalists, but they didn't, and that does impact how the Turkish brainwashing is happening in Turkey. Turks do think they're superior to the West right now. They don't feel inferior. They don't hate the West. Like if you go to Turkey, most people are like, oh yeah, like West is cool, America is cool. They don't have a hatred, most Turks, unless it's like a very niche conservative community. It's because Turks never got colonized. Turks did like kick off the British and the French after World War I. But they do feel superior. They're like, oh yeah, these like faggot Europeans, like we're superior than them, and we once like controlled like the biggest empire, and Europeans just got lucky with their colonization. They do have this retarded nationalism going on. Turks in Europe, they are like cringe and they should be deported, not back to Turkey, send them to like fucking Africa or whatever. It is still a different group. Like, you gotta be fair, this is still a way better and different group compared to like someone from fucking Afghanistan or Iraq, okay? Arabs in these like weird ass groups, they did get like colonized by Europe. So they do feel inferior. Certain Arabic groups, they do feel inferior and upset about getting colonized. A lot of Arab groups does dislike Turks for the same reason, because they feel upset about the Ottoman Empire colonizing them. Arabs also got colonized by the Turks too. So yeah, I agree about the Turks. I agree with your claims about the Turks, but I think it's different than how Arabs and Arabs living in Europe behave towards the West. Like, Turks living in Europe do not support Sharia, or they don't really have negative views of the Europeans as much as like your Iraqi or Somalian living there. And I think it's because the Somalians and the Africans and the Arabs, they have a hatred and they think they're entitled to money because of what happened in the past. Turks really don't think they're entitled to money because like they didn't even lose against. And so someone like a Pakistani moving to UK, or a Somalian moving to like whatever, or like Congolese moving to France, what they think is that these people, of course, because they're collectivists, they did this and this and this to my people. Now I ought have this from them. Give me my money. I'm going to take over their country. They cannot be nationalistic because otherwise they're evil colonizers. They're supposed to give everything they have to me. And that's what I was kind of referring to. Like, they feel inferior and they think they're entitled to everything these countries have. And they don't understand, just one last thing, I know I'm taking time. They don't understand that the money the West has didn't only come from colonization, because if colonization made you rich, Turks would be the fucking wealthiest nation on earth right now, right? But it's not. But what? Turkey was like one of the biggest colonizer of the world, like what, 300 years ago or 200 years ago? So what happened? So it's obviously not just colonization that made West so healthy, but like, people don't understand this. The common understanding is that because they pillaged, so they're like, oh, all this wealth Europe and the US has right now is because they took away from us, not because like the philosophy that these countries specifically have. So that's why they feel entitled to it. Yeah, I'm sorry for taking too much time.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I did want to touch on, before Chronic comes in, hi Chronic, I didn't want to touch on the point of colonization doesn't tend to make your country wealthier. It is definitely true. Like, if you look at the accounting of colonies, it tends to be the case that the big imperial center is sending out a bunch of money in order to build up these places for whatever, world domination plans they have, whatever military plans they have. They certainly get things back, but it's not like that classic comic of Europe and the Americas, like just, or North America, I suppose, taking all this money from Africa and South America and all these places back home. It's really not like that for the most part. Let's just look at Rhodesia. Rhodesia was vastly, vastly, vastly wealthier than Zimbabwe. There is, on the fundamental level, a philosophical component to consider here. What is the philosophy that is running that society? That determines how wealthy that society will be. Not whether they have this stuff, in the ground or what have you. Because, like, I was arguing with this, there was this, Indian nationalist, I'm assuming he was an Indian, in my replies the other day, where he was saying, like, no, India was super, super duper wealthy before Britain came in and invaded and colonized it. And it's like, okay, well, if all of these different places that Britain colonized were so much wealthier than Britain before we colonized them, how did we actually succeed in colonizing them? Like, how did that happen? Like, the US is vastly wealthier than Nigeria. Could Nigeria colonize the US? I don't think they would be able to step a single fucking boot on soil if they tried to colonize the US. They would be blown up. But from the other side of the fucking globe before they could do anything. Like, if you have a vastly wealthier nation than what you are, you're not going to colonize that thing, especially if it's across the fucking globe from you. You could maybe win a guerrilla war against that nation if they're trying to colonize you, but you're not going to be able to colonize them. It simply isn't going to happen. So, like, it is just absolute insanity, this notion that Western colonization made these countries poor. They're poor because of the philosophy they adopt. You can see this if you look at what Africans are saying. I believe it was, in fact, Sue who told me a story of Africans where if a charity opens up a well in one town and in one village, then the neighboring villages will get jealous and poison that well, literally poison that well. This is a philosophy of envy, and you're not going to build wealth on that philosophy. You simply are not.
All right, cool. Let's hear from Chronic. Chronic, how's it going, man? Good to see you, or not really see you, but hear from you again. What's been happening?
Well, I can see him because I've got my NSA uplink here, so I've got access to his webcam.
He's got a connections in the Australian Federal Police. Well, I'm gonna be releasing the Arrow of Regression video later today. Probably.
Fuck yeah.
But I was actually an hour behind on the stream, and I didn't realize that it was actually still going. Right? I thought it was like I thought I had missed it, but no. I have two things. First, I want to comment on the colonialism thing because I have a sort of quick thing to say. Basically, colonialism does not create wealth. Colonialism is the result of wealth applied to world conquest, right? In order to conquer the world, you have to become wealthy in the first place, right? You don't become wealthy by conquering the world, right? Every empire, right? Like this is like the cycle of empires, right? You have a nation that becomes wealthy, it goes and expands its borders, and then it develops too many commitments to manage, and then it collapses, right? That's like every empire. Did any of the leftists pay attention to history? No, they studied dialectical materialism for their history class, right? And so, right, like you can see this. You can also think about this in the sense of like, are criminals wealthy people? Does stealing actually make you wealthier? And like in a very naive sense, yes, I can go out and I can get money by taking it from other people, right? But as a class of person, criminals tend to be like very poor people. And not because they don't have opportunities, not because they're like born into poverty, right? You have rich people who then become criminals, right? Like they're born, they inherit a bunch of money, they do some criminal activity, and they spend it all away, right? They go from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeves in 3 generations or 3 misadventures, right? Because they don't have the character qualities that produce wealth, right? And there are a few exceptions to this. It is the most successful criminals who remain wealthy, but it's not because they are like making wealth, or it's because they are in a society which is rewarding their criminal activity, right? So politicians, right, or people who exploit the state's intervention in the economy to become wealthier, they are parasitic in a way, but they are not succeeding in a natural fashion, right? So you can understand that as an aberration, right? And colonialism on a global scale, colonialism can't really benefit from having a government there to benefit it. Like it's not like there's a super state that can subsidize your colonialism, right? You have to, as a nation, as an empire, you have to subsidize your own colonies to engage in this activity, right? And so that's just kind of what I wanted to say about that. But the real reason I came on here is I wanted to dig up a discussion from an hour ago, and I want to say video games are art from the objectivist perspective, I would say. I'm willing to debate that.
Boo! Excommunicate him.
When he said this in
the Remnant.
When he said this in DMs, I sent him the gif of me eating the camera. He got Zulu bored.
I actually want to download that gif. I need it for a meme.
There's a couple different versions. There's one version where it has like the Dark Souls you died afterwards.
Don't worry, I have a very
Zulu showing up to the next episode with his suspiciously chronic sized stomach.
Oh no, that's disgusting. You can't do that. But anyway, what what I wanted to say, what was I going to say? I was going to say, yeah, video games are art, because not just in the sense of like, okay, let's say Far Cry 2, right? Far Cry 2 has a story, and the story is depicting some specific concretization of reality, right? Like it's, it's a story about like, let's talk about GTA, because that was what the original discussion was. Like Grand Theft Auto 5 has a narrative campaign attached to it, right? It has, like, you have a story which you progress through in gameplay, and it depicts criminality, it depicts human nature, right? And it has something to say about reality. So that is an artistic statement, right? And you could say, okay, that is a movie that is attached to the game, right? You could say that there's a narrative that's attached to the game, but the game itself might not have any artistic value. And I would actually contest that as well. The relationship of the player to the game has a statement on reality as well, because the game is a recreation of reality, right? So like Grand Theft Auto 5, the way you get rich in that game is by engaging in criminal activity, by stealing, by being a parasite, right? What is that saying about reality? What is that a concretization of? It's saying you can go out and you'll become wealthy, you'll acquire resources by parasiting on others, right? And you could say, okay, that's only understood in the context of the narrative. You could acquire the same mechanics and place them in a context which say, like, describe you as a producer or something, that you're homesteading, you're out there and you're fighting the wilderness full of, robots, and you're conquering them to gain wealth. But as I said, like, the specific framing of the game and the game mechanics actually has a statement on reality. You can see this even in like, ancient games like Go. Go is a game of proverbs. It has a commentary on reality, even if it's not, right, like, it's very abstract. It's very, it's not like commenting on a specific time period or like a specific narrative, but Go can be understood from an aesthetic perspective of the way it's been designed to put forward a specific view of some kind of, arrangement, of some kind of proverbial way of living, right? That's what I wanted to say. That's kind of my view on the matter.
I don't... No, that's my answer to that. No. So
no.
So I don't think so. The proverbs in Go, it's not that it is necessarily instilling a certain. It's not that it's concretizing a certain philosophy. It's that you could apply any philosophy to Go if you wanted, but some of those philosophies simply will not work. They simply will not be successful Go strategies. If you try to be a Platonist Go player, you're in fact not going to. You're not going to win, right? Because you're not paying attention to what is literally in front of you. You're just trying to, appeal to the Platonic forms of this is the way Go is supposed to be played. I don't like this new meta that AlphaGo is throwing at me, so I'm gonna play the Platonic form of Go, the correct way of Go. And there have been all sorts of different meta changes throughout the history of Go. As anybody who's perused Sensei's wiki will know, there have been many different metas throughout the history, and they fail because they aren't acknowledging the reality of the game, right? So that isn't, in fact, telling you a certain philosophy. It's not concretizing a certain philosophy. It's just a sandbox. You go in and apply whatever philosophy you want to this sandbox. It will either be successful or it won't be successful. It's the same in mathematics, Go is in a certain sense, similar to mathematics in that way, where you can invent whatever kind of crazy, fucked up rules you want and build a numerical arithmetic system out of that. But does that actually describe anything or not? That's the question. You're a successful mathematician if your system actually describes something that actually exists. And I think the same is true of Grand Theft Auto. I think people who play Grand Theft Auto games, they're not playing it because they really love the story. They're playing it because they think it's a really fun fucking game. And the story is only in service of being fun. The story isn't in service. Like, if we look at, like, the alternative, which is Mixtape, which is just a movie that you press buttons every so often in. It's a shitty movie. And they made a game because games seem to get more leeway with story. And games get more leeway with story specifically because they are not pieces of art. They're not supposed to be pieces of art. They're supposed to be a fun thing you play. And the story is only supposed to be there to serve your fun. That's all its purpose is. And if it's doing anything other than that, if it's impeding your fun, well, then it's getting in the way of you playing the game.
I mean, this is pretty trivial. I mean, there are people who just watch movies for fun, right? Like, so there are people who watch the original Avatar, like 2009 movie for fun, but that doesn't mean that it's not a piece of art. That's just that's the relationship of certain viewers to the artwork. They're not caring about the specific philosophical meaning behind Avatar, that it's like it's an environmentalist screed against humanity, right? They're there because they want to see James Cameron's latest VFX stuff, right? And so James Cameron is getting leeway with the story. But that doesn't mean that Avatar is not a piece of art. And likewise, I don't think that means the Grand Theft Auto is not a piece of art, even though most people don't really care about the story.
Yeah,
right?
so I would say, like, Grand Theft Auto, the thing is that Zulu is kind of right in the sense that, like, the narrative exists only to serve the purpose of being able to do more crimes and, you know, do more stuff, like,
Yeah, okay,
in the
but that
game, like
doesn't
have more fun.
count to the point.
But
Like,
no,
you can imagine a movie.
so I
You
agree
can see
with
a
you. So,
movie where
and
the story only exists
bring up
to
the
service the film.
I was going to bring up the comparative example of, like, Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Because I think that's a far more narrative-driven story.
Game, narrative-driven game.
Narrative-driven game than Grand Theft Auto. Like, I think it's got a better narrative, although there are some philosophical issues I have with some of the decisions that are made or some of the way the game plays out. Having said that, yeah, I think Red Dead Redemption, like, I just think it is a piece of art. Like, whether you think it's good or not, or whether you think video games are
I do want to
good
clarify.
examples of art.
I'm not saying that video games inherently could not ever have artistic components to them. I'm saying to the extent that it's a video game, it's not art. So, ironically, Mixtape is about as artful as a game can get. And that's why it's a very shitty game.
So would you say that the limitations on, like, the more that the game, for lack of a better word, like, railroads you into a specific outcome, the more artistic it is? Is that, like, kind of what
Yeah,
you'd be
it's
saying?
it's like a Chronic. Would you say that a D&D campaign that you play with your bros, would you say that that's a piece of art?
Yeah, that's artful. Like, specifically, it's because it's not required for you. It's not required for a work to be static in order for it to have a specific philosophical underpinning. The same way real life is not static, right? We have a free will in real life, and there's a specific philosophical underpinning to real life. And artwork is a concretization of reality, right? It's a specific worldview being put into, like, a concrete form that can be reproduced and viewed again, right? And that doesn't mean it has to be static. It could just be, it could be a interactive, right? Like, worldview, right? And that's the same thing in a video game, right? If you construct a recreation of reality, but this recreation of reality, it responds to an input by a viewer, by a user, right? That allows you to have it so that there's an extra component, but it's still artistic. You're still depicting some kind of worldview out of it, right? So yeah, to that extent, like, you have interactive narratives, you have interactive stories that have a specific depiction that respond to the player's will in a certain way. And the way that the designer makes the game respond to the player's will speaks to the designer's view on reality, right? So you have games. There are games where, like, no matter what you do, you get a terrible ending, right? That is supposed to give you a negative view on life. It's a nihilistic game. It is the same. It's on the same level as, like, I don't know, a movie which is meant to demoralize you, depress you, right? It's
Picasso's art.
Artwork. Yeah, it's a Picasso game, right? Or something like that. And likewise, there are games where you get rewarded for heroic action and you get punished for being a parasite. You get punished for anti-life behavior, and that'll be something, that's concretizing a worldview that is in line with the objectivist aesthetics and the objectivist ethics, right? That's like that's what you want to see, right? And it's interactive. It's not like you can separate the artistic, like, static element from the game. They are intertwined in an inseparable way, because it has to do with the relationship of the viewer's will to the world that is depicted in the game. Right?
Well, let's try and find, like, the boundaries to this. Like, for instance, would you consider Pong to be a work of art?
Okay, so my view on this is that, like, rudimentary artwork is still artwork. So, like, a 6-year-old's child, like a 6-year-old child's drawing of like, you know, a field is still artistic. It might be very rudimentary, but it's still like they're still concretizing some view of reality. And so I think like that, likewise, even rudimentary games or games that are extremely abstract, they have an artistic like element to them. They have an artistic view because they're concretizing some fact of reality in a form that is interactable.
Well, I mean, so I think for it to be art, it has to specifically be trying to act as some sort of a guide, even implicitly, as some sort of a guide for human action, right? Like, I just do not see how Pong is a guide for human action, as against simply a game.
Well, I'm gonna give a counterexample then. So like counterexample, like let's take some films. So there's a film called Hardcore Henry, right? This movie is basically about a guy who he gets tricked into he's turned into a cyborg, and then he gets like implanted memories so that it's part of a test to make sure that like a cyborg army is working. And it's a really like shallow story. And then he goes on like a rampage and he discovers the deception, and then he goes and fights this guy. This movie, the story is just an excuse for the filmmakers to have like a whole bunch of action scenes in sequence, or like John Wick. Likewise, like the later John Wick movies are basically just an excuse for Keanu Reeves to go around like shooting dudes. But is this not an artwork? Is this like just because it's not like I don't think that's really concretizing a guide to action, right? I don't think the filmmaker really had that in mind, and like that's not really what this movie is about. It is concretizing like a particular view of reality because they're depicting reality, but I don't think the filmmaker is saying this is how you should behave, or this is like I don't think so. I don't think that's really
well. So John Wick, that is basically the hero's journey.
Has an ethical message, but like,
well, it's the hero's journey. Like that's the meta myth.
That's the first movie. I'm talking about like the later, like 3 and 4, where like basically there's just like it's just an excuse for him to keep shooting dudes, right? Like he's not going anywhere. Have you seen the later movies in that franchise? It's kind of like the first movie. Yes, I would say that there's a significant like message to it, but I'm specifically talking about the later ones, or like Hardcore Henry, or movies there where like the story is just basically an excuse for the filmmaker to do cool visual effects or do cool scenes, like action scenes and stuff.
Like Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious, that's a good one. Or like, I don't know,
Terminator, not Terminator.
Terminator
might be a good example.
Then I suppose the question is Fast and Furious a piece of art, or is it just?
Yeah, I would say clearly. Like I think they're concretizing a specific view of reality, even if it's just like from the director's perspective, all they're doing is just like making something that's fun. They are just by the fact that they are making a fictional depiction of some like environment, some action, some narrative. They have an implicit philosophy, just like the way that someone might have an implicit philosophy in their life. They have an implicit philosophy when they're making their fiction, right? And it comes out in their art, which, you know, and likewise, on the other hand, you have people who have a very explicit philosophy when they're writing their work, like Ayn Rand. She explicitly has something she's trying to concretize. There's people who write their art, write their novels specifically to have some kind of message. But likewise, it doesn't mean that people who have an implicit philosophy have no philosophy. And likewise, it doesn't mean that artworks that don't have an explicit message don't have an implicit artistic element.
I think we might be in a triangle situation here. Peikoff, I believe it was, identified that humor is almost the inverse of art, where in art you are identifying the metaphysically significant and trying to get people to follow that, in effect. Whereas in humor, you're identifying the metaphysically insignificant. That was like his nascent form of like a theory of humor. Perhaps there's another spoke here.
I think she's like practically pressing her hands up.
Sure. She could come in after this. I think there perhaps is another spoke here where gaming is on the same like liminal space, if you will, but not the same spoke as art. Could that perhaps be a thing? I don't know what that spoke would be defined by, but that could perhaps be what we're getting at here, because you could interpret humor in an artistic way, right? It is concretizing some certain view, but it's not doing it in the same way as art is doing it, right? It's doing it in a completely different way to art is doing it.
Well, actually, I would say that humor is an art form, because like you can see different comedians, and different comedians have a different like underlying premise to their comedy, right? If you watch a George Carlin show, he has very anti-life. He really wants to demoralize the audience.
Right.
He
Because
he takes great things and he makes them little. And on the other hand, you can have comedians who point out the absurdity of like evil things, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's doing the same sort of thing, but from the flip side. That's why it's not art. So art, you're focusing on David and his virtues. In humor, you're making fun of Goliath's weaknesses.
But I would consider humor to be. I would say that humor is like. I think art is the superset of all of this. Is the spoke, right? Art is the spoke, and then we're talking about specific types of art that are doing. It's like tragedy. A tragedy is a type of play. Like a comedy is a type of play. Plays are clearly art, right? So it's like that is the spoke. The art is the spoke, and then I guess we're talking about specific subtypes, right? In that sense, like.
Well, surely art would be the wheel.
Well, I don't know. I guess
if you think it's a superset, because there's a bunch of spokes in a wheel.
A good work of art would showcase both David and Goliath. Both are important.
Well, yes, but it's not necessarily telling jokes. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is a comedy set is not doing the same thing as Michelangelo's David.
But like, is a play not like is a comedic play not an artwork? Like, my point is, I think art is the superset of the set. Art is the superset that can be described as concretizations of reality in like that are meant to like they're meant to communicate the artist's view on life, view on reality, right? So like maybe not even meant to, right? That might be too far for my.
You could just say selective recreations of
selective
reality.
Recreations of reality, right? And I think games fit that, comedy fits that, because what you're doing is you're pointing out these specific things. If you're doing like, anecdote comedy, right? You're taking these specific incidents from your life and you're arranging them in such a way to like send a message, just put out some view that elicits, cute, like this is laughter, like, oh, that's really funny.
Wait, I got it. Zulu, that norm quote you keep quoting about, what if an atom, like what if they blow up the whatever.
My biggest fear is if ISIS or some other terrorist group were to get their hands on a dirty bomb and they're to blow it up in New York or some other major city. Think of the backlash against innocent Muslims.
Isn't that artful?
Isn't that a work of art, that joke?
I don't think it is art. It's doing the opposite thing to art. It's making fun of the metaphysically. It's pointing at the metaphysically insignificant, whereas art is pointing at the metaphysically significant.
Not significant.
So it's pointing at the metaphysically significant by implication, because it points at what is insignificant, and then you know what is significant. So you don't know specifically what is significant. You don't have a specific. You don't have a specific grasp on what is significant. You just have one grasp on one part of the insignificant. You don't have a specific hero to look at and understand.
Okay.
You can't say what would the main character of the joke do, whereas you could say what would John Galt do.
Right, but I think this is significant. I think what we're confusing is like the objectivist idea of what a good novel is for what the full class of art is, right? Like, there are many novels where there's not one specific heroic character who you would say, what would this character do? But then it's not like they're not artwork. It's just that they're not heroic. They're not romantic, right? And you can say that's bad from like an evaluative, like normative perspective. But we're not going to say that that's not art, right? I think there's a confusion here between like art is concretizing a guide for action versus art is concretizing a selective recreation of reality, right? These are different things. And I think the selective recreation of reality, it encompasses a broader set, but it also does encompass the full set.
Yo, after hopefully Sue gets to speak, which is a work of art of denying her, by the way. I think this is a topic for a separate stream. A brilliant stream, by the way.
I just wanted to ask if you think like games like Kahoot or quiz games online, which are also technically video games, do you think those are too? And like, how are they recreations of one's values?
Well, if we're talking about like a quiz game, like I think any game, the more simple a game is, obviously, the more abstract it is. Like if we're talking like Go is extremely abstract, so it might be very difficult to like link it. But when you think about the rules, what are the rules of this game reward? There's a sense in which that rules of the game are trying to reflect some kind of a relationship that you experience in reality. So like in a quiz game, you get rewarded for correct answers, right? So obviously this is kind of rewarding being intelligent, being aware of your surroundings, right? Likewise, in Go, you're rewarded for good understanding of the board, good use of board resources, right? And like the more complex the rules of the game are, the more complex environments you can depict. And that's why, like, a game like Grand Theft Auto, even if you strip away the notions of all of the like narrative elements, all of the specific descriptions of like people, and you just like make it a white boxed environment with like vehicles and like mannequins, there's a way in which you are rewarded with resources and tokens. The rules of the game environment in like speak to a specific view of action, right?
But does that mean then like any type of game has that? So like any type of game that qualifies for that is art?
Yeah, I mean, this is like I said before, I think like just the same way that a child's doodle is a type of art. I'm not saying that it's great art. I'm not saying that it's something that like you should feel like that it should be put in a museum, right? But like in the same way that your child's doodle, like 6-year-old drawing that you put up on the fridge, is an artwork. It's an artwork because it has some concretization of reality. It doesn't mean that it's great art, right? It doesn't mean that it has something incredible to say. It just is.
You're
I
looking at the continuum problem where the edge is very fuzzy. I do agree with Zulu though. I think I'll take back the norm joke, because I think the bare minimum for a work would have to be, so for it to be evaluatable as art, would have to be at least an anti-hero, meaning at least if it's a tragedy and a tragic fall, we call it a work of art because we know, okay, this person made these mistakes at every turn. Therefore, the thing it's trying to concretize is, hey, don't make those mistakes at those turns. You won't suffer the consequences. And if you just have like mocking the consequences in a joke, maybe that's not enough. So I think I'll agree there. But I do think that it doesn't necessarily have to have a hero. An anti-hero could be enough. So like an entire chapter on Gale or some of the other anti-heroes in the Fountainhead, that would be enough as a work of art within themselves because they point at what's wrong.
Well, hang on. I have to contest this because there are fine arts which don't even have narratives, right? It's like painting. If I do like a painting of a field, there's no hero, there's no anti-hero, there's no characters to speak of, there's no narrative attached to it. It's an image of a field, but the way I depict it speaks to my view on life and the world as an artist, right? So it doesn't need to have a particular like active personal subject in order to be an artwork.
Well, that makes it too broad because what you have is like a piece of carpet or some aesthetic thing. And now what you're describing is like a brush stroke. So it could be like a beautiful aesthetic brush stroke. But unless you put this brush stroke as part of something greater that does tell a narrative, maybe we shouldn't call it art. We should call it like a nice craft. Like you have a nice vase. Is it in and of itself a work of art? If there is a Greek story depicted on that vase, then maybe you have that. So that's sort of my direction of thinking with this. But I'll give you one example. I thought about music. Like, what about music? There are works of art that are more abstract, but they do concretize something. So with music, it's more connected to human emotions, but there is uplifting music. There is sort of like battle music. There is music that comments on certain emotional progressions from doom to hope. And so perhaps, again, I would say that such works of art would be on the fine edge. Maybe I could be criticized, and you would have to say it only becomes a piece of art when the music is overlaid on a video where there is a hero, where there is
I think this is I don't
concretization
think
of
this
an
makes any
ideal.
sense. I think this is a conflation between what objectivists want out of like novels and narratives and what the full field of artistic work is, right? Like the full field of artistic work is concretization of reality, right? You know, like that's
Concretization of reality towards what? To tell what? It has to be actual concretization. It can't be like so fuzzy that you can't understand it. Like
it's not fuzzy. I can clearly tell what is art and what is not. Right? Like
no.
By my definition,
the fuzzy is the message. Wait, the fuzzy is the message. So we understand.
Wait, but no. That would be bad. Like there is art that is fuzzy with its message. There's art that is bad at like having a specific message. But that doesn't make it
talking
not
past
art.
each other. There is the Kantian definition of art, which is
I'm not using a Kantian definition. I'm using this is Rand's definition.
Well,
a selective recreation of reality to some like a
sure, because
message about philosophy.
You're conflating simply aesthetic things or the aspect of aesthetics with the concept of art. If art is a useful concept, why is it more useful than just a sculpture? There is a sculpture, there is a carpet, there is a musical theme, there is a photograph. So a photograph might be just a photograph. When does it become a work of art? Why do we elevate it above the mundane? What does the word art mean as a separate meaning from aesthetically pleasing? You know, when you say something, I think that this is a historical cheapening of the word work of art. When
when people say, describe a field of craft, like we're describing a field of study, a field in which people there's a type of thing people create. We're not evaluating it as a type of thing that's really good, right? There's bad art.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
yes, you are. You're saying it's cheap.
No, I'm saying there's nothing to evaluate
yet.
I'm saying there's nothing to evaluate yet besides the aesthetics. I'm saying that art, the reason why we have the capital A art word is we're making it a distinct meaning from something else. What is the distinction? The distinction is the ability to evaluate it. If it has nothing to evaluate, then it's not evaluatable as art. Then what is it evaluated as? As the aesthetics. So the aesthetic itself is insufficient. We look at the concept of art as objectivists, perhaps, and we say that at the very minimum, it's it's an intersection between aesthetically expressing a theme that is concretization of reality. So it's not just concretization of reality, any reality. It's a specific theme that we want to memorize. Now, it could be bad, good. It could be on the borders. It could be decipherable. It could be indecipherable. It could be personal. It could be all of these exist, but you have to distinguish between the brush stroke and the work. If you don't, then you are starting to steer into the Kantian era where they start, everything is art, but some of it is genius and some of it is bad. But then why? We had other words for that.
So do you want to commit to the definition where art is a concretization of reality that is evoking a specific theme? Is that what you want to, is that the definition you want to commit to? Because if you commit to that, then I like my original point is going to survive, that video games are a type of art.
No, they are. I said so before, and my pushback was that the aspect where you're like choosing your own adventure is clearly not art because it's not by the artist. However, to the extent that your choices are restricted, to the extent that your choices are structured, to the extent that the visions that you are presented are created, to that extent, it is potentially a thing.
The structure of the game is what makes your choices even possible. Like that's what is part of the artwork. So the choices are part of the art. Like what choices are available, what choices are possible, what they lead to.
It's
integrated. It can't be.
His correct critique is what I personally do is less relevant than what is depicted. So, for example, if the video game presents me visions, but it's literally like a walk through a museum, and I see paintings on the wall, it's like a virtual museum, right? And we call that a video game. What is the art there? The virtual museum? Probably not. It's the paintings that are, not which room I choose to visit first. It's what's depicted in those rooms. What overlay of themes that exist. And if Zulu were to say that video games don't contain themes, he's wrong. But if Zulu were to say that your choice of which theme to experience first is not the artistic part, he's right. So you understand there's nuance.
No, but I have to say, right, when in a sense that where games have a narrative that responds to the player's choices in the narrative, right? The way the narrative responds to those choices has to speak towards what the artist views as the efficacy of those choices,
Sure.
right? Which speaks to a specific view on reality. And so the choices are not separable. The way the player interacts with the artwork and the meaning of the artwork are not separable. So you can't say like it's only an artwork to the extent that it's a movie, right? I don't agree with that. I think video games are a specific medium onto themselves where there's a the interactive element is part of the artwork. It's not something that makes it not an artwork.
Yeah, but it's not just any choices, it's the specific choices.
Yeah, of course. I would say like
that reflect
trivial...
a specific theme.
Yeah,
not like which side you scratch yourself on. It's more like, do you kill this other character or not?
Yeah,
and what would each choice
really
represent?
mean very much the same way like a triviality in a novel, like the guy picked up his cup with a left hand or right hand. That's trivial.
No, I'm sorry, like in GTA, the fact that you can go anywhere and all of that meaningless choice of which car you rob first is irrelevant. That choose your own adventure stuff is not art. The art is what happens, what is the actual interaction. The fact that you can themes like you can just steal a car for fun and do a joyride, and there is like and the police and there's no consequences for your actions. The fact that there's no consequences for your actions and you can make people suffer for your pleasure, that is a theme that it presents. It either punishes that or it rewards that.
Well, GTA does kind of punish you for,
I mean, you can die.
Stealing people, stealing stuff. Like you can, be attacked by the cops and killed, and that. So they do punish you in a sense. Like it's not like.
And here's another area for gameplay improvement. Here's another area for improvement in the technology in gameplay, not graphics. Is perhaps they could have a system where like they can like see you on CCTV, like in the Hitman games. Guards can see you through like mirrors and stuff. Like that's a gameplay
so I think they actually
technology
are
thing.
Implement that.
There you go.
Implementing so GTA 5 the police system was very rudimentary. It was basically the same as what it's always been in Grand Theft Auto, which was that like you could get up to like a 5-star wanted level where like the army in tanks would come after you. But then once you died or you escaped, then you were in the clear. Like you could walk up to a cop, 5 seconds later, and there'd be no like punishment.
Good day, citizen.
They kind of changed that in Red Dead Redemption 2. So obviously, because of the time period that it's set in, post-Civil War America, they had like a bounty system where if you shot someone, and the cops saw who it was. First of all, they had to actually physically see you carry out the act and be able to recognize who you were. And then once that was to happen, even if you were to escape, you would have like a bounty on your head that then people could come after you for. So they did. The point being that they did create some kind of like long-term consequences to criminality, where you would have this like ever-increasing bounty that you could eventually pay off, but it obviously costs you money, which is quite scarce in Red Dead Redemption. Actually, is how much money you can collect. So there are actually like real long-term consequences to like wanton destruction in Red Dead Redemption 2 that weren't there in previous Red Dead or Grand Theft Auto games. And it seems like they're implementing, it won't be like a bounty system because it wouldn't make sense for present day America to have like a bounty system really. But they are going to implement some kind of system where like if you commit a crime and the cops see you, like you have to do more than just like escape them for 30 seconds to like reset. Like you are going to like face longer term consequences.
Dude, that's such a missed opportunity. There is a bounty system in American crime these days. There is one.
Yeah, you can do. There's bounty hunting in modern America still.
There's gifts.
It's called being Muslim
for criminals.
It's funny.
They should implement something like that.
But I guess
to be honest.
I want to close off my view on this matter. I'm gonna read directly from the text of the prophet Ayn Rand, peace be upon her. Okay,
Peace be upon her.
From the Romantic Manifesto. Art is a selective recreation of reality, according to an artist's metaphysical value judgments. Man's profound need of art lies in the fact that his cognitive faculty is conceptual. That is, he acquires knowledge by means of abstractions and needs the power to bring his widest metaphysical abstractions to immediate perceptual awareness. Art fulfills this need. By means of a selective recreation, it concretizes man's fundamental view of himself and existence. It tells man, in effect, which aspects of his experience are to be regarded as essential, significant, important. So that is the definition of art according to the prophet Ayn Rand, peace be upon her.
Amen.
Depending on obviously you might want to cut it off there, but amen, of course.
Ayn men.
Ayn men, many men. You might want to cut it off there, but I do want to kind of tear into this idea of Go as art a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we can go for like another, I don't know, maybe we'll make that our last point and then we'll kind of wrap things up.
Sure. So like what you're hammering at here is that art is selective. And you were making this claim that like, well, the rules are selective in Go, such that only certain strategies succeed. But that is entirely emergent. The rules aren't enforcing that certain strategies work and certain strategies don't. The rules are as broad as you can possibly get in gaming. And then it happens to be the case, because this is a game based in reality, that certain strategies will end up being more successful than other strategies. That, I think, is the disconnect here. Is that it isn't saying you need to have this type of shape, which we think looks beautiful. It is saying, it's just laying out this Conway's game of life for you. And you decide how you want to play it, how you want to respond. And there are different strategies, to be clear. Like, I've played a 2-swap at Go a number of times. That man plays like a fucking insane person. He's very good at the game, but he plays like a maniac, because he plays pretty much exclusively bullet Go. And like he just has like this intuitive understanding of shape, unlike other people I've played against. Like, there's a great diversity in strategy that you can have. And that's because it's not enforcing a certain strategy upon you, which would be required for it to be selective. So I just don't think this is a selective set of rules here. It's as broad as you can possibly get, as unselective as you can possibly get, as we all know. With its, bishops and queens and so on and so forth, we're the only people who play chess. But if there's intelligent life out there, they're almost certainly playing Go. That means it's not art.
It's not art because the aliens are playing it. That's what he said. Everyone clip it. Aliens don't have art.
Aliens are retarded. They don't have art. They're Philistines.
As you see, the Prophet Ayn Rand is talking about man, and aliens are not man.
Man qua man.
Okay, so women don't have art. That's what you're saying, Chronic. Chronic is a sexist. Confirmed.
Flip that. Chronic without context.
This is why we need feminism.
You notice, though, and with an increased audience, even though it's quite late, the art topic is going to be hot. Discussing art is amazing.
We should set up another. Maybe next Remnant we'll go more into this and we'll discuss video games and other kind of aspects and whether they're art or not. I think this is basically what this space has been for the last 2 hours.
And as an artist myself, it's a very important topic to me.
Yes, and as an autist, it's very important to me as well.
As an autistic artist, objectivist, it's very important that we know what art is before we move on.
I mean, the autistic there was a bit redundant.
Yeah, I think, it's included in the...
You're an artist and a libertarian. All right, it's a foregone conclusion.
Oh my god!
Anyway,
As an artist, I have to say I hate artists as a community, as a group of people. They are so insufferable. They're awful people. If you meet an artist on Twitter, 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, they are an awful leftist freak.
And we know what
who does
Casimir would
not-
have to say about that because so many of them are
anti-human
leftists.
people.
We know what
We need to-
Casimir
we need to
has to say about
reclaim
artists.
The fine arts, bro. That's the mission. That's my mission. Is we're gonna reclaim the fine arts. We're gonna make it a good field again. That's what we're gonna make art great again.
All right. Well, on that note, we might leave things there. Thank you to everyone who watched and everyone who contributed. It was a lively discussion on lots of different topics. Might try and do more of this. You know, like it's going to depend week to week, obviously, what's kind of happened. But it'd be good to have like several different topics we can hit on and see which ones kind of take off. Because I certainly wasn't expecting this to turn into an art discussion space. That's not where I was expecting this to go, but I'm more than happy to see that happen because that's kind of what we want this to be, is an open-ended.
Honestly, that's the beauty of this format. Is
Yes.
no other podcast could you have that happen. This is why we love the people, we love the viewers, we love the contributors here. I'm trying to do my best Donald Trump here. You guys are amazing. This is the cult of Liquid Zulu. Zal Zulu.
Great. They're the best people here. Zal Zulu. Zulu's a great guy. I've met him hundreds of times. He's an amazing guy. We've never had a better man than Mr. Liquid Zulu. He is the leader of the Remnant. And we love the Remnant here. The Remnant is the best. My impression
And
is
we
worse
are,
than
in
usual.
fact, a Zal Zulu cult as well.
The Remnant is the real MAGA movement. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, right now, MAGA demands the Remnant victory over America every day.
And
For the rest of the time, the Remnant must win.
And special
Go on, I'm
apologies,
done.
special apologies to Fountainhead Forum for being 30 minutes late here. We're gonna miss you, brother. Special apologies there.
We're just throwing different times at the wall and see which one sticks, Zulu. So everyone go check out Chronic's new video when it's up. Make sure to do that. Nikolai Pavkovich, the great man, the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend. Everyone
I'm sure
watch that
Zulu
video.
will tweet it out when I upload.
Yes,
I'll
make
send
sure.
it to
Make
I
sure
very
you're
well-
following Chronic
It
notifications.
depends on how long it takes. I very well might be asleep, but DM it to me.
I'll probably be a few hours from now, so you'll probably go to bed. You'll do it in the morning tomorrow. Who cares?
Yeah.
I'm not
exactly.
gonna get engagement anyway. I have like 15 subscribers anyway. You can
I have
wait a day.
my YouTube channel, quote unquote, has like 100 subscribers, even though I've never posted a single piece of content on it ever once.
You should be one of those channels. Remember back in the day, there used to be those channels like 10,000 subscribers with no videos, and like it would be like a whole
57 subscribers. Here we go.
There you
I
go.
actually have videos. I have videos from me fighting the bots in Beyond All Reason.
Yeah, I
I have
remember
a
that.
super hot video. I have a video from.
He's a
Children of
content
Dora.
creator, guy. Chronic is
I'm
a certified content creator.
Without looking, how many subscribers do you reckon my channel has?
I don't know, 10 million?
35.
No, genuine guess.
Wait, Crownick, you're doing it wrong. Where is your YouTube channel in your bio? What's going on there?
It's in my Discord bio. It's not in.
No.
I'll put it in my Twitter bio. Hang on.
Put it in your X bio right away, please.
Anyway, so I need guesses. How many subscribers do you reckon I have? No videos.
350.
80.
120.
Gee.
120.
Are people just subscribing to you from like my channel?
It's literally because I've appeared on your channel so many times.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Okay.
And I've left like comments on your posts and stuff, but like genuinely.
Yeah, this is a clear sign you need to start. Honestly, you're more subscribers than a lot of people who started doing the snack tube thing. You got to start making videos
You have
now.
more subscribers than me. I actually have videos. This is humiliating. All right,
Cool.
I've added my YouTube link to my X bio. I should have like a link tree at some point. That way I can link everything at once. That'd be great.
Yeah, but whenever I see Linktree, I assume they just do porn.
Yeah, honestly.
Damn it. I'm ruined. I'm meant to stop doing porn.
Well, who says that Chronic isn't going to start an OnlyFans?
No, yeah, start an OnlyFans, but then like make people subscribe, and then they just subscribe, and then just libertarian content in your artwork.
It's just more. It's just more.
Thirst trapping with Murray Rothbard quotes.
I mean, OnlyFans is not only for porn, as far as I know.
I don't think it started as porn. I think it started as like literally just like members only content, but then it very immediately became porn.
Like everything is just became about porn.
It just became porn very quickly.
That's a bit like saying in Australia you use a free VPN for anything other than pornography. Like let's be so fucking for real right now. There's no other reason why anyone's downloaded a VPN in the past 6 months. But no, too easy. All right, we will wrap things up there. Thanks to everyone for jumping on. And yeah, we'll see you 2 weeks hence, all going well, with more to discuss. So see you all, and Zol Zulu.
Zol Zulu.
ZZ.
Charles.
All right. You bill chats. All right, we got one from Griff1 None. Thank you everybody for tuning in, by the way. Brilliant stuff. I'm going to be, I think I'm going to be streaming, I'm going to be on Ask ANCAP tomorrow, of course. Everybody go check out that channel. You can now super chat over at Ask ANCAP. I believe I got a cut of that. I don't know. I think we worked it out a while ago. But you can super chat over at Ask ANCAP if you want to get your question cut right through everything. Check out the show. That's every Saturday at the same time, 2100 British summertime. So yeah, check it out. That's going to be tomorrow, and then on Sunday, I was planning to stream Twitch only, or we're going to play a Mecha Chameleon game because we want to get as much people as we can. You want to check that out? Check it out. If you got Amazon Prime, feel free. This show is multi-streamed. Go over to Twitch. Free for you. Just give me an Amazon Prime sub, Twitch Prime sub. It doesn't cost you anything. It gives me money. Brilliant deal, I say. If you've got one, you only get one, of course. We've got Griff1 None for $5 US. Thank you very much. This guy's George Soros of ANCAPs. He's giving a lot of money lately. Thank you very much. I'm a lot more pessimistic about the Mamdani types. They genuinely hate humanity and just want to punish the productive while framing it as virtue. Yeah, they're very honest about how evil they are, which is in some ways refreshing, but in some ways very depressing. Then we got a Connoisseur of Cookies 2047 for 10 Australian dollars. Thank you very much. The quibbling about data is redundant. It's similar to how people get into semantics of whether an act is genocide. The geno is not the crime. It is merely the motive. The side part is. Indeed, yeah, it's... We've gone over all that, of course. I think these people are terrible. I think they've got political motives, and I hate them. And then we've got a Thunder Gaming 6342 for $2 US. What is the most funny debate you have had? It might be the Kurt Doolittle debate, where after a while I just started trolling him about how he pissed himself at a rally. And I had my stream covered in images of him pissing himself at that rally. I just completely disrespected him so much. It was a pretty good one. Then we got another one from Thunder Gaming 6342 for $10 US. Thank you very much. There is a video by Eyebrow Cinema saying The Incredibles is not objectivist. I'm not in your Discord, so this is the link. I'll definitely check that out. I've in fact got it on my other workspace. So I saw you posting that earlier. Oh wow, 200th followers feels good, man. Or THH OMSW. Thank you very much for being my 200th follower on Twitch. Oh, I send the Twitch link. Yeah, let me... https://twitch.tv/liquid Zulu. And yeah, no, you can watch my streams over on Twitch if you're so inclined, and you can give me money for free over there. That's the main benefit. That's the only stream to Twitch. And yeah. And then we got one from Ariel David 95 for $5 US. Thank you very much. I mean, is a society not its people? And by the way, what you're describing is more like brain influx, which is the opposite to a brain drain. Yeah, it's the receiving side of a brain drain. Definitely, yeah. Then we got a couple of memberships here. Andrea Voltglander. 1087, apologies if I've mispronounced that. Who is now a member for 7 months at the big boy tier. Saying Zal Zulu. Well, thank you very much. And then Thomas, the privatized train, who's also now a big boy. Thank you very much. And then somebody is a member for 9 months, a small boy. I suppose they've retracted their name or something. I can see it over on my other dashboard. It looks like it's Corvid Prax, who is right here. I don't know why it doesn't show up here, but there you go. For $5 he is saying, thank you very much. Do you plan to respond to any of Mendes Wave's criticisms of the Remnant strategy? I'm not familiar with that, as he has released a video critiquing the Remnant strategy. We can definitely go over it. We went over his Borders video, I believe, with Monhop there. But yeah, no, send that in. If you're in the Discord, then just DM me, or DM me on Twitter, whatever it is. I'm notoriously bad with responding to DMs, but I'll make a special exception, I suppose. But yeah, been good. Yeah, thank everybody for coming along. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and then the day after.